Hello, everybody, and welcome to this kind of special, probably supersized episode of Film Seizure. I'm Jeff Arbuckle. With me, as always, Chuck Moore. Chuck, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I appreciate that you asked. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Jason, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I don't really care how you're doing.
Well, that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen. No, this is our best of 2024. This is the one that, it changes a lot of people's perceptions about what wins the Oscars. Mm-hmm. It changes the world, I believe. It makes the world a better place. But we let everybody else have their fun in January, sometimes as early as December. We really have the final word on what's the best of a year. But all joking aside, this is one of my favorite episodes we do every year because, this is a show that, we talk about stuff we like. At least one or two of us like every movie that we talk about, if not all three of us, right? And actually maybe even love a lot of the movies we talk about. But we talk about a lot of that through a lot of lens of, nostalgia. We're talking about movies we grew up with or whatever. This is the stuff that's right now. This is the stuff that we are most attracted to when it's like, I'm going to go see a movie. What do I want to go see? And it's fun to kind of talk about that and to be, I don't know, for, the next, couple of hours or so, actually feel like real critics.
We pretend good.
Yeah, we're just three jerks with microphones. It's like most of the time. So,
What did that one guy say on YouTube? It's like three guys talking about movies to themselves. What does this world come to?
What has this world come to?
What has this world come to? I believe that guy also literally just fell off the internet turnip truck. It's like, do you not know what all of the internet is?
We were the first movie podcast he discovered that was just middle-aged guys talking about movies.
Yes. And he's like, this cannot stand. Oh well. We have fans.
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah. Anyway. But generally speaking, I want to also say that 2024 I thought was a pretty entertaining year in terms of movies.
A lot of variety this year.
Yeah.
Speaking of nostalgia, my list is like chock full of nostalgia for me. Like 4 of the movies I picked remind me of a time in my life almost.
Interesting.
So it does kind of fall in line with what we normally do in a way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One of the things I like a lot about this year is that
the thing that reminds you the most of your life is Conclave, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that one time.
That time you got to pick the Pope.
I'm always blowing
talk about
smoke.
that all the fucking time.
Yeah. Oh, he's got black smoke coming out of his ass.
Yeah. I did right before this episode.
Sorry, Jeff, you were saying.
No. I was going to say, one of the things I really like about a lot of the movies that I saw this year that really resonated with me is that they're all kind of different types of genres than what you see on the surface, right? Like, like Baby Girl, for example, might seem like a drama, but it's kind of more of an erotic thriller in an odd sort of way. Conclave seems like, it's just a bunch of old white guys picking a pope. No, it's also kind of a thriller. I Saw the TV Glow is a movie of, it's a lot. But it's like almost every genre is wrapped up into that, but there is an existential horror that runs through it all. All of these things I'm sure we'll talk more about throughout the episode, but I find it's been a good year to kind of experiment And you can really get the sense that there are some new ideas coming to the table.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel real heavy on anything. Like, like some years you're like, oh, it's the year that no one believes women in every horror movie, that
Right.
whatever, like those themes that we've uncovered in the past. Like this year, it doesn't feel like there was an overarching theme to anything.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Jason, what are some of your thoughts on the on what we're about to dive into?
I don't know. It's the first year that I've, probably in a while, that I've had an animated film in my top 10. Maybe kind of sort of two animated films in a way. A third almost made my top 10. A lot of chalk this year, though, on my list at least. Apparently I was very in simpatico with a lot of the Oscar nominating voters, because I think I've got 5. Is that right? 5 movies nominated for Best Picture in my top 10.
Knowing your taste, it does kind of like say good things about the choices that the Academy made in ways.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I picked my number 1, because I like that movie got the attention that it got, and it's not normally the type of movie that would.
I'm surprised. I mean, it's good. It's real good, but I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting year. A lot of really different types of styles, even in the dramas. Stylistically, there are a lot of them. The way they were shot very uniquely and differently. Yeah, it should be an interesting convo.
Well, I think with that, I'll just go ahead and dive into one of the movies that made my top 10 of the year. The winner of this past Sunday's Best Ensemble Cast, Conclave.
Conclave. We're going to have a conclave.
Maybe sooner than this episode gets released. Who knows? But yes, Conclave, Edward Berger. This was one where I saw a couple of trailers for it in advance, and I thought it's a boring Pope movie or something, and it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. But then it's like, I kept thinking, it's like, it's got a hell of a cast. It's got Ray Fiennes. It's got, Stanley Tucci. The Tooch is loose.
The Tooch.
You got John Lithgow. It's like, man, this is, and it seemed as though it was getting a little bit of good conversation around it. And I thought, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go see it. And I went to the theater on a Friday night, I think. And it was an interesting group of people, a lot of older folks. A few seats down from where I was sitting, there was like a 20-something girl by herself just watching the movie. And it's like, people were getting kind of like, this might be kind of interesting. And I'll be damned if it is really, really captivating. It does so much with just having people talking about stuff. And it's a little bit political intrigue. It's a little bit of thriller. Like if people started getting murdered, I wouldn't have been surprised.
There are people getting murdered in character assassination. Like,
absolutely,
it is kind of like a murder a little bit.
Absolutely,
devastating vape hits in this movie.
But it was something that for the first time in my life, I actually like. You know what? I kind of care how this works out, like how they do this process. I'm not Catholic. I didn't grow up religious or anything. I knew that there was a group of people who picked the new pope, but I didn't think I would care this much about it.
Right.
And there's a really, Ray Fiennes is so understated in his performance. He's so even keeled through almost all, 99.9% of it. he is cool as a cucumber, and it's so good. Top 10 worthy, I would say, even.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, this was in all three of ours, right? This is one
Yes.
of three.
It is indeed.
One of three
Chuck,
this
you
year.
had it higher than both of us.
You had the highest. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I really like this movie. All the things that Jeff said. There's this like growing mystery, and there's a mysterious character that's like creeping the entire movie, and you don't know what the turnout of that's going to be. And it's a little bit wilder than you would probably anticipate at all. But it is a payoff, right? I mean, there's a good payoff at the end of this movie. It's surprising. Some people probably fucking hate it. I don't have my ear to the ground on much of this, but I'm betting a lot of people hated the end of this.
You would think, but I haven't even heard that much in that regard. But like, yeah, I know what you're getting at, but
Well, the people you would think would hate it did. Yes.
Okay, fair. Which, I mean, even people that I think maybe were like thrown for a wild loop on this one. Shit. So it's well worth like a top 10 spot because the acting is phenomenal. I watched it. I think you both said you're going to like that movie. And then I showed Steph the poster and we were both like, oh yeah, these are all people we like. Let's watch this movie. And it is like one of those ones that you're like not expecting to get sucked into. And you're like, whoop. Like you're right in there, like right away.
How long did it take for you to have to go to the bathroom?
That's a good question. I'm betting it was.
Barometer.
I'm betting it was longer than 30 minutes. I'm betting I made it like half this movie. It's one of those movies you just kind of lose, and it's weird because it is so. It reminds me of an Oppenheimer in that way that you just kind of get so sucked in, and it's just people talking for most of the time.
Yeah, it's so talky, but 120 minutes flies by.
Yeah, agree.
I mean, it's that Best Ensemble Cast award is so deserving because they're
always together.
The performances carry this movie, and those moments of like pairing off, that are just like those dynamics.
Lithgow and Fiennes.
Lithgow,
oh my god!
Yeah, I mean exactly. And then obviously having Fiennes kind of anchoring the whole thing. He really does feel like your doorway into this process, even though he's an integral part of it, because he's never done it before, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really as a recovering Catholic, as I like to say, there were elements of the process that I was familiar with, but there were others that I weren't. I'm also obviously probably more familiar with the politics of Catholicism than you two. So it wasn't surprising to me that there were these factions that had been defined, as far as what type of pope these different groups wanted to elect. But yeah, what I wasn't expecting was a political thriller, like it's what it was,
right?
With scandal and all very reasonable scandal, right? Like none of it felt outlandish, other than maybe the ending. But I thought the ending was kind of brilliant, very timely, and very much. My favorite part of the movie is when Fiennes gives his homily at the Mass, and he talks about being the enemy of something about like being the enemy of perfect or something like that. Like
don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yeah, and the reason for tolerance and faith and all of that. And I was like, the ending was the perfect kind of realization of that idea. I thought it was just really great movie. I thought I was not sure what it was going to be when I went into it. I was like, is this going to be somewhere in between like the two popes with Jonathan Pryce and who else was in that? Jonathan Pryce and Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, Hopkins, yeah.
Where they were like, it was like Ratzinger and Francis, and it was like a true story. Or like the young pope with Jude Law, which is like very pulpy, like almost completely zany and out there, right? But it fell, I think, somewhere in between.
Yeah. One real quick thing I want to say before we move on to the next movie. Chuck talks about this one character that's kind of creeping around. Like there's almost like the reveal of this character, not the end reveal, but the reveal in the middle of the movie is almost like I almost think about it in terms of like how a comedy would handle it, where it's like, hey, who's this new guy that's sneaking around, and then like a camera pan over to this like completely and totally different off the wall cardinal all of a sudden. It's like, I don't know, he's some weirdo. And it's like,
well, they already let him in.
They already let him in. Yeah. It's like, he's here now, so I guess we got to deal with him. But there is, and there is a lot, like you said, Jason, about like that homily about embracing uncertainty. And that is really the character of the Pope that we never met, the one who died, seemed to be very open to embracing uncertainty.
Yep.
Which is maybe necessary for the Catholic Church to live.
Without uncertainty, there's no mystery, and mystery is the essence of faith. I just really like. I've never actually heard anyone describe faith in a way that I could get behind. until that moment, I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive, to be quite honest.
Because it applies outside of being like a religious faith. It can be your personal faith, right? That is not tied to any god or whatever. That shit works, what he said, for everybody.
Yep. So very, very good movie. Very, very good script. An exceptional script.
Yes, indeed. I think it's going to win a few Oscars, maybe. We'll see. But script for sure. I think for sure in the bank. Yep.
Sure. All right. Jason, why don't you talk about one of your favorite movies of the year?
Oh, what should I talk about? Let's see. We'll go down here on one that's on... excuse me, only on my list. Sing Sing. Sing Sing, I had no idea really what this was. I knew it played, this was re-released a couple months ago, in kind of the Oscar campaign season, right? Like it had an earlier release earlier in the year and I didn't get to see it. I think it might have played some festivals. I didn't get to see it. But then when it was re-released, I got a free ticket through my E24 membership. I was like, yeah, I should go see that. Didn't really know what to expect. Was pretty blown away by it. It's based on a true story. It's about a theater group, a prisoners theater group in the Sing Sing prison that they put on just throughout the year. They just put on play after play after play. Sometimes they're original plays, sometimes they're based on Shakespeare or something like that. They have a director, writer who runs the program, who's a civilian or works for the prison or whatever you want to call it. But pretty much all the decision making, everything is done by this group of men in this prison, and it's this interesting examination of like how to feel normal in an environment like that, how to kind of break out of your own prison of yourself, right? And learn to express yourself in healthy ways. Like this group is like half therapy, half theater for these guys, right? It's like their one escape from the mundane and the just the fear of this prison system, right? They're and when they can act, when they can pretend, they feel like normal people. They feel like themselves, right? And the performances are phenomenal. And then you find, I almost hate to ruin it, but this is probably something that's not like a big secret, but for me it was like this cool revelation, was that most of the people in the movie were men who were in this program at Sing Sing at one point in time in their lives. So they're all playing versions of themselves in the movie about them, right? And it's just probably the most life-affirming movie I watched this year. There were a few but it was, I think, the most purely, in my top 10, I think it's the most purely like human movie of the year, right? And just kind of makes you feel good about humanity for once. So if you need one of those, like last year's was my number one of the year. It was Perfect Days. Sing Sing is kind of in that vein of just nice, right? There's another movie that's a little bit more unconventional that I think also fits that bill of nice. That's in my top 10 this year, but Sing Sing, yeah, it's a nice, just good pick me up. It's a really good human story. It makes you feel good.
Nice. I like Coleman Domingo.
Yes, he's so good in it too. He's one of the only like non-prisoner actors, but he's our main kind of anchor, right? Yeah.
That one was on my list, but I did not get to it, unfortunately, because it definitely was intriguing to me, and I feel like I would definitely like it. Based on what I saw about it, I just did not get to it.
I saw a couple of trailers for it, and it looked, I mean, it was the same thing. I was like, oh, it'd be nice if it got a wide enough release where I knew, but it came too late when other things got. But yeah, it's one I'd like to check out. So.
Yeah, you should. Definitely worth your time.
Awesome, Chuck. What you got?
I will go ahead and talk about Saturday Night. Like I had mentioned a lot of this. I can't even remember the word we were using, but this reminds me of my childhood. This isn't my era of Saturday Night necessarily, but I'm very familiar with this group. And I was super intrigued to see that. Actually, at first, I was kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. They're going to be taking lots of liberties with what they think happened. I don't know how many people are consulting on this thing that were actually there. But then I watched it. And I was like, this is fun. This is a testament to like perseverance in a lot of ways and taking like giant leaps of faith, because Lorne Michaels really did something that had never been done before. And it's pretty well executed and illustrated in this movie, like the chance he was taking. And Cooper Hoffman as Dick Ebersol, it was like, holy shit. It's Philip Seymour Hoffman's kid playing Dick Ebersol right now. And like, I could see Dick Ebersol being like that back then before he was, because he took over NBC. I don't know when, right? Or like,
but he took over SNL first.
Yes.
Before, he was the one when Lorne Michaels stepped away. Yeah, he was the first one. But yeah.
But really, like, this movie doesn't reinvent the wheel. It is a good representation of pressure under fire in 90 minutes. And I think it encapsulates some of these people the way I think about them. Like, Jesus, Chevy Chase.
Oh, God.
Spot on Chevy Chase. Like, that's got to be what Chevy Chase was like. Matthew Rhys plays a role in this that you would never fucking guess it's him. Like, I defy you to watch this and know which character he is in this movie. Like, did you guys know already when you watched it? Like, I'm honestly curious.
No, I mean, there were very few people that I was aware. I knew that Gabriel LaBelle and Rachel Sennett were in it. Those were the two that I knew the most.
Rachel Sennett's basically Rachel Sennett.
Well, right, but I knew that Gabriel LaBelle was in it because I liked him a lot in The Fabelmans.
Yep, Matt Wood as John Belushi was insane. Like, he's a little off, but like even his moment at the end of the movie is kind of sweet because of what happened to him and how he's played off in this movie and how the show ends. Like, it's really cool stuff. I can't really say a lot more about it other than maybe J.K. Simmons fucking killed me.
Oh my God. Yeah. I really, really liked this movie. I saw it on opening weekend, which was the 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live.
The actual,
Yeah. And I do know that there was some work put into, like, the interviewing people. I mean,
the validity of the
Yeah, Jason Reitman was pretty did as much as possible to capture the feel, at least, of what the stories he was hearing. But I mean, what I didn't know was that, this was, this shouldn't have worked out. The studio was against, or the network was against doing this. Was a power play against Johnny Carson.
Oh, the Carson stuff was true. Yeah,
right, which I didn't know about going in.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm guessing that there wasn't 4 hours worth of content that had to be whittled down to 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they had 4 hours worth of ideas weeks in advance, and just trying to figure out what's the best 90 minutes to score, and it was, it was a good old fashioned, ensemble comedy that, you're over here for a little bit and then you see somebody walk by and you follow them and it kind of made you feel like you were there.
Yeah, a little bit. And then you do have that centering of Lorne Michaels, who's not always the focus, but he moves the story.
He pulls everything together.
Yes.
Yeah. And the scene that I thought about for days afterwards was the one with, they were trying to figure out where John Belushi is, and he and Gilda Radner at the skating rink.
That was fantastic.
It's just a sweet scene.
It's the only thing I really believe is real, and it's probably not. Maybe it is.
Right. Yeah, right.
But it feels very authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason, you saw this too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was fine. That was fine. It was an enjoyable, breezy watch. Some things annoyed me, but yeah, it was on my short list.
I do like, and I really, really, really very much like the guy who played Garrett Morris. I thought he had a really good scene with
heck yeah, from
Jane Curtin,
Lamorne Morris. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Is he actually related to Garrett Morris?
No.
Just
I thought he was, and then I looked it up, and he was not.
Yeah, but he did say that Garrett Morris was always an inspiration to him.
I'm sure, yeah.
So, but
he's a very, very funny guy in general.
Yeah.
Morris, yeah.
But he has a scene with Jane Curtin that's really good too, where they're, because these are two people who really kind of didn't expect to be at this, and they were just kind of talking about just kind of rolling with the punches, kind of,
That I think a lot of those vignette scenes are like how you view their history in the show played out before the show ever aired.
Sure.
If that makes sense. Garrett Morris never thought he really fit in. Jane Curtin never really thought she fit in. So they put them in that situation, and which the conversation may never have happened, but they certainly both felt that way throughout their time on the show.
Yeah. And I really do there's so many good lines between characters that are just sniping at each other. And the guy who was playing the main writer. I know. Michael O'Donoghue. Yeah. Every one of the lines from Michael O'Donoghue was just great. And then him going up against George Carlin. It was good. It was just, I enjoyed every minute of it.
Yep. Shout out Paul Roost as Paul Schaefer too, just for a quick shout out. That was good. He was good as Paul Schaefer.
The guy who played Andy Kaufman and Jim Henson absolutely killed me.
Oh, yeah.
Both of them just showing up randomly throughout the movie just absolutely destroyed me every time.
Oh, and everybody messing with Jim Henson's Muppets.
Oh gosh, poor
so
Jim.
good.
He's poor sensitive Jim.
Good stuff. Good movie.
All right. So I guess it's back to me, huh? All right. Well,
it is.
Speaking of sensitive, this is one that I have on my list that neither of you do. I have a real pain in this, in my list. And this is a movie that I'm not the biggest Jesse Eisenberg fan. And it's a little unfair to him because I've not seen anything that I think is good. Like that turn as Lex Luthor was in a pretty shit film. But I really really enjoyed this movie, in a movie where in one scene you could be laughing really, really hard, and the next minute you're kind of gutted, and there's no like. I think that again, kind of like with Conclave and with Saturday Night, you're kind of there with them. You know, it's like you're kind of with these two guys and you understand every single thing that Kieran Culkin does and why it irritates Jesse Eisenberg's character so much. Yet at the same time, by the end of the movie, you have a total understanding of why he's acting out the way he does. It's annoying. You almost hate the guy. But at the end of the day, he's really hurting. And you don't often see a movie where you portray somebody's pain in a way that can be both funny while also heartbreaking and very realistic. And, you know, it's like he may say and do a lot of things that just embarrass you for these guys so often, but at the same time, you feel for him at the end, and you know you end up kind of loving the guy, even though, well, he's a real pain. But he's also suffering from like a deep pain, and it's you know it's a good I think it's a good new way of showing somebody suffering, and there's a whole segment there that. It cuts out all of the funny stuff and just takes you on a tour of a concentration camp. And it's just devastating.
It is. In ways, this movie was almost too much for me. And then at the same time, I thought, well, not at the same time. I will say that the processing pain through comedy is like been my whole life. So I really kind of identify with that. Yeah. In Kieran Culkin's character, and I think he does a fantastic job. Jesse Eisenberg is almost too much like a Richard Lewis, Martin Lewis. What is it?
yeah, okay, yeah,
and that might be his personality, so I don't want to like pigeonhole him, but I think it is too much a little like funny, short, manic, like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I kind of looked at that as, you know, they're both missing a little bit of what the other had.
Yeah, and one is suppressing and one is like fully enveloped. Like, I think that's all good stuff. And I do think this was a pretty good movie. It just didn't make my top 10. And I thought it did some things really well. And Kieran Culkin was the one thing to mention about this movie, for sure. If you don't mention anything else, he was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to
add? No, I liked it. It got on my nerves. And I think at times it was supposed to get on my nerves, but I don't know. This is the most patient tour group in history.
That too.
Yes.
I would, if you haven't seen it, I would recommend also to our listeners, check out Everything is Illuminated, because that is this movie better, in my opinion. But check that movie out. But yeah, I do agree. Kieran Culkin was kind of given a role of a lifetime. I don't necessarily believe that he should win, because I do think that while he is kind of exploring elements of pain, like you said, it feels a little bit one note a lot of the time. I wish we could have gotten a little bit more to the root of him than we did. We really only were able to scratch the surface, but
I don't think he was ever going to let that happen.
Yeah. But anyway, it's interesting movie. I think I think we'll probably be seeing more movies like this, with that kind of this, third or fourth now generational, Jewish generational, a reflection on the Holocaust, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially now with like this weird, awful turn back towards this sort of nationalism that we're seeing even in Germany. So yeah, I think it's important to be reminded of some of the important themes that this movie tries to dig into. Yeah, and that some of that, some of that, pain is generational, right? Some people these days like to make fun of generational trauma, but that's a real thing. That's you're passed down. These things are passed down to you. You cannot help but be affected by the pain of your parents and their parents. It just, yeah. I have a movie coming up that I'm going to talk about that addresses some of that kind of generational trauma, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's present in a lot of Japanese movies too, or Japanese culture. And that goes back well before the even the Second World War. It's very much what the generations before you has an effect to everyone on one specific. I mean, it comes down, almost crashes down on them. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, Jason, take it from here. You want to lighten things up a little bit?
Yeah, I am going to lighten things up. I'm going to talk about the zaniest movie of the year.
Oh man, yeah.
Hundreds of Beavers. I'm shocked this wasn't on Chuck's list. I'm almost insulted.
Yes.
It got edged out at the very end. It was sitting there.
Was it edged out by Nicole Kidman?
Yes, it was actually. It was sitting at 10 and it got bounced.
I just could not put this on my list. I had so much fun. Probably the most fun I had watching a movie this year. Well, that's not true. My number one is the most.
Yeah, I was going to say, you had so much fun with that. You wanted to take a whole part. Like, I thought you were going to rent out a theater at one point to make us all watch that.
I still have like one major regret about that movie, but I'm hoping I can rectify it one day. But anyway, Hundreds of Beavers. Man, what a weird, cool movie. It is the most creative movie of the year, I think, as well. I can't even imagine the amount of meticulous preparation and plotting and project management that went into making a movie like this. Like the gags, how beautifully layered they were. Like they were sometimes the gag is kind of like, all right, enough, but then it goes to the next level and then a level after that and you're like, okay.
Yeah. Well, explain a little bit about what it's about.
Okay, so Hundreds of Beavers is about a lumberjack who his apple cider factory burns down.
It exploded.
And he's now homeless in the cold, and he's got to like Sim City his fucking life back together. Because this movie is like part video game, part Looney Tune,
part Buster Keaton.
Part Buster Keaton, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It's all physical comedy.
And then there's part visiting the strip club right in the middle of the movie.
The fuck was that about?
That girl just really liked him.
I don't know. I mean, I will go back to this movie time and time again now. It is just so much fun. It's by the creators of, what was their other movie?
Something Monster. The Michigan Lake Monster.
Michigan Lake Monster.
Or Lake Michigan Monster.
Which I saw years ago, and I remember liking enough, but I want to go back and revisit it because I have a feeling it's probably going to scratch an itch that I didn't realize that I needed scratched, whenever I saw that. Because Hundreds of Beavers just hit perfect for me. And I was like one of those movies too where I'm starting to watch it. I'm looking over at Susan. It's like, is this annoying her? And she was into it. This would play so well with like a packed theater.
Oh yeah.
Play this and Cannibal the Musical with your friends.
Oh yeah. Cannibal the Musical, it's right there too, right? It's like the G-rated Cannibal the Musical. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I said to you about it was how much I loved the fact that it just when you think you're getting tired of a scene, because this movie is 2 hours long. Like it's a long. It's a long. I mean, I guess
that's my one gripe on it is it's too long.
Every time I was like, okay, this scene is either just a retread of the last scene, or okay, I get the joke now. Let's move on to the next. And then, like you said, Jason, it hits something harder.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh my God, it's the biggest laugh of the scene.
You endure a few cycles for the real joke later, right?
So question, and this is like, I think it's too long, and I do think that those beats hit too much that are setting you up. Like, I think you could scale back on a few of those. Like, we're hitting this trap thing again.
Oh man!
Like, and still deliver.
The entire trapper map sequence is. Honestly, I think that person should be whoever like came up with this. They're a genius, flat out, like fucking genius. I mean, it's just so well thought out. The whole thing, and like the way it. It really did feel like the most convoluted video game where you have to farm constantly to build up things, right? And it's but done in this really fun, like looped comedy. Oh,
it was good. I just thought, no, you're fine. You're fine, because I really did want your feedback there. Like, I just feel like they could have scaled back on some of the middle re-hits before the punchline.
That's
like,
fair.
I still would have landed for me.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays a second time for me, because will it wear out its welcome?
Because those payoffs are fucking good. Like, I will not discount that. They're very good. I just think they earned them earlier. Like, it's almost like they didn't trust themselves a little bit in ways, or they really wanted to get that art on screen, which is fucking, the way it looks is.
Oh my god.
It's really good. Like, this is just offside my list. I'm being only slightly critical to show why it's not.
It looks so good. I don't even know, like, it's definitely has that Trey Parker, Matt Stone, like DIY feel to it, right?
It does. It reminded me a lot of like a Matt Trey thing.
But also meticulous in its simplicity, you know?
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of whiteboarding going on when they made this.
The whole movie's a fucking whiteboard.
I mean, it really honestly, if you watch this movie again, Jason, you may end up deciding, you know what, I'm going to become a fur trapper. Because it kind of teaches you what you need to do in a way.
I know what all the currencies are worth and the
what's hundreds of beavers worth? Apparently, a pussy.
This reminded me, and it's not the same, but it reminded me of a game called Don't Starve. So if you liked this and want to kind of play it just to see, Don't Starve is really cool.
Well, I could literally see someone making a video game of that of Hundreds of Beavers. They could
absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, they mapped it out. They mapped the whole concept out. Yeah.
I positively love that every animal is just a guy in a fursuit.
Oh my god. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. The fucking bunnies they're so good. Like, forget the beavers. Like, they're the least fun part almost in a lot of this. Like,
they're the villains. Yeah.
They're the villains, but all the other animals that are like they're even funnier.
Did this have like a over an hour long cold open?
No,
because it doesn't even get to the hundreds of beavers on screen as a title until that's what he tells him he needs to collect in order to marry his daughter, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The dowry. Yeah. that's easily halfway through the movie. Yeah. That's funny. Anyway, yeah, it's a hoot.
I like it. Yes, it's on my list too. So, yes. Chuck.
Yes. Speaking of more nostalgia, the one I picked, this is kind of weird because I only saw one of my movies in the theater. This wasn't it. But that's weird to only see one of 9 in the theater, is Riddle of Fire.
I was curious about this one because I had not heard of this.
This was just outside my top 10 too.
I'm shocked it's not on your list.
It was for a long time, and it just kind of get slowly bumped out. Yeah.
I think you need to watch it again because this is fun in a way that Hundreds of Beavers is. But but it's more like that, 80s, 70s, Kids in Trouble. The whole premise is they steal a video game from this, I don't even know what the company is called nearby them. And they steal a video game to play it. But their mother's like, you can't have screen time, and she's real sick, and she sends them to get a blueberry pie. So it's kind of like the question mark quests all over. It's almost like a video game again. They have to track down certain things, and it leads them to a place with some really bad people that they're trying to get something back from so they can make this blueberry pie from their mom. It's kind of like, us, we went on a bicycle adventure and somehow ended up in a fairy tale video game adventure with, God, I might need some help here, Jason.
I described it as The Goonies meets Mandy.
Okay. Yeah. I could see that. And it doesn't quite have that pirate ship at the end, but it has a similar kind of ending that there's real high stakes, even probably higher than Goonies. Like, you never feel them as much as you do in this movie. There's like stakes.
And it has most importantly a rather chilling ghastly doll.
Yes, it does have a rather chilling ghastly doll. The kids are just great. It's a little weird, like their acting isn't great, but it adds to the charm too, that it almost feels like you're just watching like home video of these kids on their adventure in a small way. But they have these funny moments where one kid is eating like 5 pounds of food out of a pan while all this shit is happening around him, that you're just like, this is so great. It's so cool.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
It is hard to describe. It is, but it's kids in peril with a lot of that sort of like the sense of adventure of like a sword and sorcery almost, right?
Right, and it does have that overlay too with some of the characters are calling themselves that way. Yeah.
There is a mystical, fantastical element to the movie for sure. And that could also just be like the way kids tell a story, right?
Right. It could have just been Ma and her two.
Exactly. This is the way these kids choose to remember this adventure when they had to gather the ingredients to make their mother blueberry pie when she was sick so that they could play their video game, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It takes this really kind of mundane plot and turns it into this grand adventure.
Yep. I think you would like this, Jeff.
I probably would. I mean, looking it up when I saw it on your list, I was like, what the hell is this movie? Then I looked it up and I'm like, is this movie made by real people? Because you have the director is Weston Rizzulli. You have people in the cast named like Phoebe Farrow.
And it's made in like Montana or something. Like it's
Park City, Utah.
Or Utah. I thought it was a foreign film when I first started watching it.
Well, yeah, because like you got like Sorhab Mermont is like one guy, Lonzo Leggins. It's like these aren't real people.
Lonzo Leggins is a Hobbit. He's in it though.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
He's the one connection to.
There's a line in that movie that I think about a lot because it's so good. It's kind of nonsensical when you hear it on the surface, but from the mouth of a child and in the context, it makes perfect sense. And this one character says about her mother, she says, yeah, she's kind of a great mama, but not really a good mama. It's like, it's so perfect. Her description of her mother is perfect in that moment. Yeah, you just get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this movie a whole lot, but now that I started talking about it, I'm like, I don't know what to say about this thing.
No, it's fine. But yeah, it's real fun and it looks beautiful. It was shot in 16 millimeter, I believe.
It's very bright when it's bright, and the darks are really
super
like
high
midnighty blue. Like, it is super high contrast, and there's that there's a mystical feeling throughout.
What's interesting, I was reading about it. They shot in 16, and then they video outed it to like digital So it was shown mostly in digital from the 16 millimeter, which is so that they could do some color correcting and things.
Right.
But they did show it in 35 millimeter a few times. They made one or two 35 millimeter prints, and they said it looks like almost completely different, but still
Interesting.
in an interesting way. Yeah.
Nice. That's all I got on that one, Jeff.
All right. Well, so this next one that I'm going to talk about is kind of part of a larger, maybe conversation that I want to have. This is one that's, again, going back to the list that Chuck and I share of picks that we had. Long legs. Long legs, to me, that was one where it's like, it was kind of a wild ride for me, because it's like, for a long time in the movie, it seems pretty straightforward with a pretty creepy villain, right? Like, and boy, you guys mentioned Mandy. Nick Cage is all in on this one.
Yes.
But there's a way that the movie looks and the way that it plays out that really does feel like it was made in the 90s. And it had me thinking a lot of Silence of the Lambs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Micah Monroe is a female FBI agent, kind of holding her own in a very male-dominated bureau. She is there is obviously the pain in her life, and the villain is almost larger than life. But then you realize, wait a minute, it's supernatural too. And it's, I don't know. It was the best it was the best representation, because I could have had 4 horror movies on my top 10 because of the way they either made me feel, the way I thought about them afterwards, or whatever. And so I kind of wanted to use this after get your guys' take on Long Legs to talk a little bit about some of the other horror movies that was competing with Long Legs as the best horror film of the year.
I'll just say real quick, because I don't have a lot to add, that 100% agree this could be like a Jonathan Demme film. Like 1,000,000% agree with that. This is the movie that when I saw it, I liked, and I did not think it would stick around. You know what I mean? Like, I really like this movie, but it doesn't feel like one that's going to hang on to like a top 10 list, because we watch it in February. And it like dropped, and then I think about it again, and I'm like, man, that's really good. Because other movies, like one that's later on my list, made me rethink of this one. And then I just watched another Osgood Perkins movie, and I'm like,
Yep.
I don't want to get into that too much, but he has a certain way of directing actors that comes across in both of the movies that I think is much better suited for this film. I don't want to get into it, but the odd, weird, like, delivery and like
he separates humanity from the human in a way.
They're
right?
almost all robotic in a way. In some, yes, and it way lends itself to this movie and not the other one.
Have you seen any of his other stuff before Long Legs? Either of you?
No,
but Black Coat's Daughter.
Yeah, Black Coat's Daughter that's
a really good movie.
It's unbelievable. I think it's the best movie. It's better.
I've not, but I'll watch it.
It's really good.
His Hansel and Gretel is also good, but
I saw that,
but not as good as Long Legs. What he made? Oh yeah, I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. That's really good too. You can catch it on Netflix, I think.
I will say that Osgood Perkins.
That's kind of his style. Is I think my point is that's how he directs actors. Yeah.
I will say though that Osgood Perkins himself has the best line in that new movie of his.
Yeah.
You know which one I'm talking about, Chuck.
Yes. That's really good. And I mean, Long Legs to me is a better movie because there is, even if you take Cage's performance out of it, which I almost think you can, and you still have the dread of that character.
Well, there's a way that you feel danger all around Micah Monroe from the first moment of the movie.
Right. You don't need to see, and Cage definitely adds to it. Like,
Absolutely.
I'm not saying take him out and it's good. I'm saying like the dread is there even when when you know nothing about him.
Cage is the Jack in the Box.
Yes, 100%.
Like, the movie is turning the thing the whole time, and you feel that constant dread. But then, Cage is every once in a while the Jack in the Box that gives you the true,
start.
Like, start. Yeah.
But as far as some other horror movies, did either of you or both of you watch Heretic?
Yeah, I liked Heretic a lot.
I did too.
Loved it until I didn't.
That's
when,
fair.
When it became like very conventional, I started tuning out.
Huh. That is interesting because there is one thing that I thought about with Heretic the whole like week after I saw it was what is really real in the movie? What part of that movie is real?
I don't even know.
Right. I mean, it's like I saw it with 3 other people and all 4 of us had a different take on what we were actually seeing.
Whether there was actually like revivals and that shit.
When did people die?
Yeah.
And I thought it was very early, actually.
Oh, interesting.
And that a lot of it was the Jacob's Ladder effect, but that was one that just landed outside my top 10. Late Night with the Devil, I just loved the whole vibe of that movie. They nailed the late night talk show, late 70s, early 80s aesthetic and feel. I really, really, really liked Oddity a whole bunch too. That is one that, wink, wink. That's the next Monster Mondays. Nice. But, I thought it was a really pretty good year for horror, and even the horror that didn't register as much for me, just to kind of pull one out, Cuckoo.
Yeah.
I liked that it was something different.
I liked most of that movie.
Me too.
But that was one that kind of fell apart a little at the end, but I liked that movie.
Well,
Strange Darling. Did you see Strange Darling?
I didn't watching Strange Darling.
That just missed my list too. I really like Strange Darling, and I will say, if just to add to your thing, I know you guys didn't have the highest opinion of Nosferatu, and I think it does kind of wear out its welcome. But the sound design of that monster is one of the best I've heard in like a long fucking time.
Sound design,
really
the
good.
Costume, or the set design, where the tooth. It's like wow. I mean, visually, it's a treat.
Cinematography was beautiful. I
don't even know what I
should win cinematography.
I don't even know what I don't like about that movie necessarily, but I know the scenes that are with the husband, whose name, why can't I remember his name right now?
Nicholas Hoult.
Yeah, Nicholas Hoult, while he was good in it, I thought his stuff was extraneous, most of it. I was like, but still, I like that movie.
Sadly, I committed the cardinal sin of I was stuck on Werner Herzog's version.
I was too.
I hate to admit that, but I was.
I was too. I absolutely agree 100%.
I wanted to really love it. I went in, it's like, man, too. I'm excited.
Me too.
But yeah. That's unfortunate.
It's too bad you guys don't have my memory. Sorry.
But no, I was just thinking about like all the scenes in Herzog's that are so great, and then I couldn't help but just compare them to Nosferatu, and I was I found them lacking at almost every stage.
It was like I was watching one in one eye, and the other was playing side by side in the other eye.
Exactly right. And that also part of that, not only was it unfair to the new version, but it made the new version kind of boring for me. Like it was dragging.
It was too long.
It was too long just in general. It's the longest of the 3 by a lot, I think. So it just felt like I was like, okay, let's kind of get to the new thing. And I was hoping they would maybe bring a little bit more new to it. He kind of did with some of the more psychosexual stuff, but I didn't really. I know people really liked Lily Depp's performance. I didn't.
Some people hated it.
I didn't think it was very good.
Yeah. Some people, as in Chuck Moore.
No, I didn't hate her at all. I think people I've seen a lot of conversation about the faces and her screaming and her contortion.
I thought she was
that people
pulling a
just
lot.
didn't care about. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like it was leaning a little too hard on trying to score herself an Oscar nomination or something. I don't know.
But I will agree, like, I think it was last year that I maybe had one horror movie in my list and it was just like not a great year for horror. It was like there was a lot more there. And I think this year is starting promising with what I see is coming out and what I've seen.
You see the Talk to Me people got the new one?
The Talk to Me people, Finn Wolfhard's movie. Looks amazing.
that looks
I can't
hilarious.
Wait to see that. So I'm looking forward to this year in horror.
Yeah. So, no, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about horror because this is an uptick from last year.
Well, I mean, we've got two sort of kind of horror movies on Chuck and my list. It's on one of them's on your list too.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean, I knew I wanted to save those conversations for you guys. So,
Sure. But is this a good time, Chuck, to maybe talk about one of those?
I don't know who's up. Is it me or is it Jeff?
I just took my turn. So,
go ahead, Jason.
I'll start talking a little bit about I Saw the TV Glow then.
Yeah.
So that's on all three of our lists. And feel free to chime in anytime, any of you. This is a movie. It's kind of a puzzle box movie in a way. It's you're not really sure of what's reality and what isn't reality. I always hate to throw the term Lynchian out there, but I think it's apt here because I think what Schoenberg's doing is they're really kind of combining aesthetic styles in a little bit of a cauldron to represent themselves and their psyche by telling a very personal story of their own gender dysmorphia. Right. And so in that sense, the style is very personal to the story because it's their story. But it's a creepy movie because it takes you through this kid's life and he's trying to figure out where he fits in. Right. I mean, he doesn't even have a concept of a plan. Right, about who he is. He is just completely confused. He meets a friend, and they bond over this TV show called The Pink Opaque, which is sort of kind of a stand-in for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Right, even uses font.
Also, I really and the opening credits are very similar to also, but I really love the
X-Files kind of too. Yeah,
I really love how that title rolls off the tongue. The Pink Opaque. Yeah. It's such a nice flow to it. Yeah.
But what kind of ends up happening is she, lives in a troubled home, he kind of does too, or neither of them have good home lives. They find each other, they bond over this TV show, and then one of them decides they need to leave. And they want to bring the other one with them. And it becomes this metaphor for finding and being your true self, right? And you kind of come around. I mean, maybe you can interpret it different ways, but a lot of times you're not really quite sure of what's reality and what isn't. And what reality is becoming your true self and being, brave enough to know thyself, or you're kind of stuck in this self-loathing and not ever becoming who you really are.
Right.
And kind of what that can do to your psyche, how that can kind of eat you up inside, the despair that can come with that. But sometimes it's easier to live miserably than to be brave in a society that is going to ridicule you.
Right? Yeah, because there's a bigger fear out there. You know the misery that's here.
Yeah.
You don't know the misery that might come.
You live with the misery you know. Yeah.
I want to add one thing to that if I could. More like on the surface level. like just the title of the movie, the style of the movie. There's all like an eerie uncertainty to everything, and it reminds me of watching like a scary movie when I was a kid.
Absolutely.
And I think that does add to that, like that periphery of danger that you just don't want to get into. Right? So that's what that TV made me feel like that when I ran up the stairs looking behind me when I was real young after I watched Halloween. I feel like probably some of these people who are fighting for their true selves are like running up those stairs constantly, kind of thing.
I love it too because there's a dynamic in it where that thing that you loved so much when it was important to you, when you go back to it later, you see its warts, you see its flaws. You don't really even understand fully why you thought it was so good, right? The nostalgia brings you back, but when you view it again, you think, what was it that I really liked about this? And
what was this speaking to? What was this speaking to back
but
then?
it was escape. It was the comfort. It's the blanket that you know, and there is a little bit of like when he's talking about that where it's like you understand why he found it, but he's in a different place now.
Well, that's exactly right.
You grow older
when you go back
it.
to it later, when you're older, it can't give you what it gave you then. It's incapable of it.
You've hardened those receptors,
and you've gone deeper into your despair. Yeah.
One thing I definitely want to say about this movie, I'm sure I've said this. I know I've talked about this with Jason. Chuck, I'm pretty sure you're aware of this too, but I cannot stand when a movie tries to encompass a TV show or a movie or something tries to encompass a certain era and becomes anachronistic because it wants to encompass all of the era, right?
That's like never come up on this show. Never.
But like, you know, it's like as much as I generally dug Stranger Things, I hated every time that they made a reference to a pop because I'm like, we didn't talk like that. We didn't dress up like Ghostbusters so perfectly. They were those fucking vinyl bullshit. Ben Cooper. Yeah. And, you know, it's like we didn't have actual jumpsuits like we do now. You know, it's like, but there's a lot of times where it's like you watch it, like, especially if I was part of that era. You know, I'm like, that song didn't come out in the date that they said that, you know, it's like, that's not right. But this movie it felt right. Like I felt like I was looking out a window at 1998 or 1997 or whatever. You know, I'm like, I'm right back there again. You know, I'm 20 years old again. Even the way the outside looked and like there would be breezes blowing through trees and stuff. It's like, I feel like I'm standing in a street in 1997 about to go do whatever 1997 Jeff did, you know, and that was so nice. Yeah. I mean, like it was like immediately I'm like just sucked right into it. And, you know, it's like I went up to the TV screen or to the movie theater screen, screamed at it and then shoved my head into it.
And then
the next day when
nurse said that isn't that a girl show?
Right. And then the next day I wore a disguise so I can come in after I got kicked out and watch the rest of the movie.
Those unassuming performance by a member of Limp Bizkit in a movie.
You know, I think he can act.
Can he though? He was only in like a couple scenes. He kind of mumbled through them. I don't know.
Well, but he's playing the part right.
I didn't even know it was him until after the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Fred Dirschbag was in it?
Yeah, he was a dirtbag.
He should have been wearing that red Yankees cap. Then I would have known.
Yep.
But yeah, this is it's a beautiful movie that just made me think of just what it was like growing up, you know, and
it is relatable.
That I think is relatable to anyone because coming of age stories are always relatable, right?
Yes.
And you can take this at its most basic subtext as just becoming an adult.
Yeah.
Right? And the fear of that or the, you know, the failure to launch per se, right? So yeah, there's
No, I was just gonna say. I also really like the line. You know, when the girl's like, when he's trying to talk to the girl about going over, and he's like, I just like watching TV shows.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I kind of get it, man. You know, it's like sometimes I just want to like turn the brain off and just be where it feels right. And I think in as much as this really is as much as this movie really has become a kind of a bastion of like what it's like to have gender dysphoria and dealing with there's so many other things that this can apply to too. And it really kind of helps break down the idea that everybody has their own struggle.
Yeah,
and
it's almost like a lived experience to be shared between people that are not alike. Like
exactly. And everybody has to
everyone else. Sorry.
Yeah, no, everybody's got to come to the center point, their own path, right?
Right. And everybody has their own timeline. Like when he says that line, like I think I just like TV shows. That's all he needs right now.
Yeah.
Right then, right?
Yep.
He'll need more later and he'll have to confront that. But for right now, it's okay to just like TV. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and the actual theme song or the song named after the movie and it plays in that bar when they reconnect. God, that's a great song. That's such a
the musical performance. I mean, they're very much Twin Peaks Red Room like sequences in that bar. And what do they call the bar? It was
I can't remember.
It was kind of a play on the Roadhouse. I don't know. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, those sequences were good. I like a nice like musical interlude in my moody movie, and those hit the spot.
Kind of lets you breathe for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, Chuck, is it your turn or is that my?
It is Chuck's turn.
All right.
Want to keep the horror thing alive?
No, actually, I'm going to go to
mix it up.
A little more nostalgia and talk about the Yacht Rock doc.
Ooh.
Which is another one that surprised me that it stayed on my list. And it's not so much the movie, but the feeling and what it did to me outside of the film. Like, this is, like, if you like Yacht Rock, if you like Steely Dan, and you like the offshoots of Steely Dan, specifically Toto and its members, you need to watch this movie. It's fucking awesome. Like it does a really good job of explaining the epicenter of Yacht Rock, what these artists did, how they permeated the rest of the rock world. But why this movie remains on my list is I've not stopped listening to Christopher Cross, Toto, Michael McDonald, like any of this stuff, Steely Dan, since I watched this movie.
That was playing hard on New Year's Eve when I was. It was like, we're playing the entire Christopher Cross album. Yes. All right.
Like I watched this movie twice since the first time I watched it, just to kind of feel it again. I've sat nights where I just put on like one of the songs from this movie and let YouTube do its thing with all the shit it brings with it. And Steph's like, I gotta go to bed. And I'll be up until
like, I'm gonna have another whiskey.
Yes, whiskey.
I'm floating in the Yacht Rock.
Drink Scotch whiskey all night long and fall asleep on the couch.
Steph's always like, why does he die behind the wheel? One other thing this did for me is Steph no longer tells me I have to skip or change the channel if Steely Dan comes on. She has like a certain new respect for the band.
So too, actually, it's same.
Yeah, which is cool, and we're going to see a few of these bands this year. It's obviously not going to be the same as seeing them in the 80s. There isn't a whole lot more to say about this, so I'll keep it short. But if you like that era of music or even curious about it, I think this is a fun watch. You guys, Jason, I'm assuming you really liked it. Jeff, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah. It for whatever reason, I didn't record it as part of my 2024. I recorded it on Letterboxd, but I didn't record it on my spreadsheet.
It's in my Letterboxd short list. Yeah.
And I watched it. I think I watched it first because like I saw the advertisement. It's like, I ain't got nothing to do on Saturday night. I'm gonna watch this, and I was like messaging you guys, like, you guys are going to love this. You guys are going to really like this. It's so cool when something like a kind of soft rock, kind of easy flow song or artist like a Michael McDonald or something gets so much outpouring of love that you feel vindicated. That's like, I'm not the only ones. Me and my friends are not the only ones who love this. Is Questlove, right? That's talking about? It's like,
Yeah.
Like that dude, I'm going to trust his opinion on a lot of things. And he's talking about growing up with this. And it's like, he knows what's up. It's like,
well, that part's amazing. Like the way that so the influence of those artists, black artists in the 70s, informed the later 70s white artists, which informed Nate Dogg and all those guys later who were using their samples.
They also kept all those black artists employed because the white artists were selling their music to white people.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like all the times they were like, oh, that brother is white.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I love it.
Hilarious. I have one criticism of this documentary.
Okay.
I wanted more. I think it's too short.
That's
I
fair.
wanted more. I was actually devastated when I realized that it wasn't an ongoing series. I thought it was going to be like a 45-minute on like 5 or 6 episode series, and I think they could do it. I think there's plenty there to mine. Like there could have been just one whole entire episode on the fact that, Questlove and talking about its roots in black music, right? I mean, you could do a whole mini doc on just that topic.
Yeah. I love that the Yacht Rock YouTube guys were involved with this too.
Yes.
I mean, they invented the term.
Yes. but again, it's like, didn't you feel a little vindicated that it's like all these years of us like quoting it, watching it, and it's like, it really meant something.
It really did. It really did. It was fantastic.
Another documentary real quick that I want to mention that landed 11th on my list. Jason watched it. Chuck, I don't know if you did, was Superman.
Yeah, it was good.
I did not catch it.
This is winning awards.
Yeah, it won the BAFTA for documentary feature.
It's very good.
And I appreciate that it is. I appreciate that it was a documentary that did kind of reveal some of the warts of Christopher Reeve.
It was a true character study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that I mentioned to you that I really liked too was that it did bring up that thing when he did that commercial where the CGI made him look like he walked. And I do remember the backlash. And it's like, it's good that you don't just blow over that, but to actually, I mean, and to also have that other lady who worked with him that was paraplegic, who sadly just died shortly after that got released.
Yeah.
But for her to say, no, he really was what he said he was. He just was using his platform.
Yeah.
That's so important that people remember you can use a platform when you have it.
Yep.
So that was another one that I greatly appreciated.
And just like all that archival footage and the participation of the family and understanding that it's like, yes, we're here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because that's what our father's life was. It would be an insult to him to try to gloss over all of the adversity, right?
I get the impression that he talked about that too.
Yeah. I just the fact that it was. It had so much participation from his family. I think it really lended. It really felt like you were starting to understand the man because you were seeing him through their eyes, and that's really special because you don't always get that from documentaries like this.
Yeah. Another documentary like that. There was a documentary made that played at Heartland about Dan Weldon.
That was good. I watched that.
That was really good. That was really good too.
Tenderheart or Lionheart Lionheart. Yeah.
Yeah. What a guy.
That was so good with his sons.
Yes.
Doing the kart racing and his wife.
And don't you just like feel for his wife watching her son do that now?
And
it's
they have like this legacy. They feel like, are they being pressured to do it? Is this what they think that they need to do for their? Yeah, it was hard. Yeah, that's a really good movie.
Yeah.
And I would like a follow up on that. Honestly, I think that's one I would love to see. 10 years from now. Yeah.
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 All right. So, I think, so looking at all of our lists here, I think real quick, Chuck, let's bring up Baby Girl, because if we don't, it's the only movie on all three lists that won't get talked about.
Well, Baby Girl didn't make my list, but
I mean, like, of all of the three lists, that's the only one that doesn't have an asterisk or
okay.
yeah. So
I think it deserves a mention for sure.
I think it deserves a mention. This is a movie that you saw the trailers and it's like, ooh, I kind of want to see this saucy movie here, and then you see it and you're like, yeah, that was all right. But it's not a movie that's trying to make a statement necessarily that is anything but potentially truthful for a lot of people. Like, there are some people who have a lot of power that sometimes just don't want to have that power. Sometimes there's people who are technically happy, but they could use a little bit more, or maybe they're just a little freakier than Antonio Banderas.
Yeah. He's not freaky enough.
He's not freaky enough. He's too loving. He's too nice. But it's a movie that I was very, very much a fan of every single person on screen. Like, I liked every character.
Like, you liked them.
Yeah, like I liked them. Like, I was like, I get why people are drawn to these people, or why they are the way they are. Or it's like, I felt like I understood them well enough to say, you know what? I can't really blame this person for doing this or feeling this way, or, acting out in a certain way, or, whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's a strong movie. It's a strong movie with strong characters as well.
It is another strong movie. It is about identity, right? Mm-hmm. Which is another. There's quite a few on the list that are kind of about identity this year, but the fact that it doesn't clue you in to who has power throughout the movie in a movie that's about power dynamics is kind of what makes this movie good. Like, you don't know, you kind of have a suspicion about who's made this whole thing happen, but you don't know, right? Like, you don't know that, and I don't want to ruin the movie, but it's well done. It's, like you said, it's sexy. It's like a Basic Instinct, or, even a little Eyes Wide Shut, but not as far to that,
Yeah,
but it's well done in that way that makes you question all of what everyone's doing, and not in a way where you're like judging because you don't have all the info ever until the very end. Yeah.
It's also just a really modern and accessible take in deconstruction of a marriage, of sexuality,
sure,
of the spectrum, of the sexual spectrum that people live on, and what they need and what they want. I also really like the scene where she's like, this doesn't stem from any particular nature nurture, right? Or nurture, I guess, would be the one. She's like, I wasn't traumatized as a child. This is always what I wanted. And I think that's another stigma of, like, some forms of the need for sexual pleasure. It comes from some kind of, like, learned experience or some childhood trauma or whatever it might be.
Or daddy issues.
Or sexuality in general, where people are like, being gay is a choice, or this is a choice.
Right.
Yeah. No, or
you're a sex worker because you were touched inappropriately. No, sometimes it's just, hey man, I got the goods. I want to do it. Let's do it. And yeah, it is more complicated because humans are more complicated.
Right.
Yeah, we happen to be complex creatures.
It turns out, yeah. Also, I gotta give it up to Helena Rain, who had come off of Bodies, which very nearly made my list 2 years ago. I think it's sat at like 11 or 12, and I think, Jason, it was just outside yours too.
Yeah, it was around there. Well, Harris Dickinson too. he's having a nice run right now.
I really like him.
Yes.
He was great in that show we watched.
Yeah, the Murder at the End of the World.
Yep.
The Britt Marling.
Well, and then he had
Jolly
the
show.
a couple of years ago. He had both triangles, a Triangle of Sadness and See How They Run.
Right, and then last year he had Iron Claw, which
That's right. Yeah.
which is a great ensemble movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
He's like a British guy who feels like he was born in Kentucky.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He feels like he of him and Post Malone, like he's the one that didn't get famous.
Yes. They would totally do the hand lock of Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger, or whatever that hand lock was.
Yeah. All right. Jason.
Yes. So let's see. Well, I can talk about Nickel Boys. This is an interesting one. Susan really wanted to see this. She read the book. I didn't know anything about it. I had a vague feeling it was about Deep South civil rights, and I was right. It is this is one where, like, I know Conclave is going to win Best Adapted Screenplay, but this is the one I feel like almost should win because of how dynamically it was adapted. So the book takes the point of view of two boys who have been sent to a juvenile detention center, essentially, in the Deep South. It's a work camp, and it's segregated. And it's based on actual real juvenile delinquent work camps that were in the South, but it's not, strictly speaking, a true story, right? And it's told between the perspective of these two boys, and almost like memoir style in the book, I guess. But in the movie, they decided to do something very dynamic. It's 4:3 for one, so it's this really, tight frame. So you're really kind of like in it. But it's all first person. It's all POV first person, and it switches the perspectives back and forth between the two boys. So not always do you realize right away whose perspective you're seeing until they do something very clever with the camera. And there's lots of different tricks and things they use to then help you understand who it is you're following. They even have one of the characters in present day, a contemporary day, and you don't know who he is until that's gradually revealed towards the end of the movie. Because you do have this sort of sense of dread that one of these boys isn't going to make it out alive, right? And you don't know which one. You don't know the circumstances. It kind of is like the way, 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 way better Sleepers.
I was going to say, is it like Sleepers? It sounds like Sleepers.
Yeah, but less like, it's different.
Sleepers is good, though.
Sleepers is very good. But this is like, I don't know. But yes, you're right. It's different. It's just different. There's a different way of telling a story, and it feels very claustrophobic, like you are really in these boys' shoes, and interchangeably, and not really able to escape. That for the first maybe 30 minutes of the movie, I kept asking myself, is it really the entire movie going to be this way? And I was thinking in my mind, I really hope not, because I was uncomfortable in that POV. But as the movie goes along, and you kind of understand like why he decided to shoot it this way, and you get more and more uncomfortable in some ways, but also like are able to share in some of the joys and the triumphs as well along the way. It makes it a very personal movie. And very you feel like you have this empathy that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise, or maybe it's almost like was it a more manipulated empathy, or was it like a more realistic empathy too? It's hard to say, but I think it probably, when you think about translating a book to the screen, it's almost like the perfect representation of that. because of the way you're in that POV. When you read a memoir, then like seeing the movie, you're not watching it from a third person on a stage. You're like reading the words on the page, but you're living them through their eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, pretty cool movie. Sad though, devastatingly sad. Don't watch it on a bad day. Very, very, very sad.
This is one I floated a few times to Steph, and she was just like, no. I think because of what like we know kind of what it's about.
It can feel punishing at times.
But it looks like one I hate to even use the word enjoy, but it looks like a movie that would be kind of up my alley a little bit. So I'll check it out at some point.
It could have ended up being like very conventional, very just sort of disposable Oscar bait, right? But what the way it was shot, and it's not surprising. This guy's only other feature was a documentary, and he shot it kind of like a documentary, but through that first person lens,
like they were holding the camera while they were living,
almost kind of, yeah.
No, yeah, that's one that, again, I saw trailers to, and was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, because you see in the trailer that you're looking at from their perspective, right? Yeah, and I thought, oh, that's interesting.
And from just a pure like technical aspect of how that was edited together, and then there's also these other like sort of historical pieces that are edited in to kind of give you time frame context and also just personal context of the characters, right? I mean, it's also the movie I think it should win Best Editing, but won't also. So the two things I think that Conclave will certainly win. I think Nickel Boys did better, but I don't want that to take away from Conclave, because Conclave was a great movie. But it just wasn't, I don't think, seen as much as Nickel Boys. Or it was seen more than Nickel Boys. Yeah.
Gotcha. Chuck, before we go back to you, I was looking at the flow here, and what I have one extra movie. I have one extra like non-checked off movie. So, you mind if I do a couple of things real quick before?
No, go ahead, man.
And then I'll bounce it back to you. Yeah. So, here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to bounce it to you. Then we're going to go backwards. Go to Jason, to me.
Okay,
right.
Go ahead.
Okay,
all right. You just guide us through this journey. Please. All
right. Well, yeah, I'll moderate here. I want to talk about A Complete Unknown. Mm-hmm. Every year, there seems to be like a movie that I know I'm going to love, and I'm not going to be able to be talked out of it in any way, shape, or form. A couple of years ago, it was the Tom Petty documentary about wildflowers. Finished number 2.
I still haven't seen that.
Oh my God, it's right there on YouTube, man.
Yeah.
That's so good. Rick Rubin's such a weirdo.
Yeah, he is.
But it's like to hear him talk about like what he wanted to work on in the mid 90s, which was mostly rap. It's like, no, dude, not you. You look like somebody who would not be in the studio for this. But no, he's a great producer. Anyway, beside the point. Then there was the Weird Al story, and now it's time for Bob Dylan to step into my top 3. I never saw the actors. I only saw the people they were playing. Even Edward Norton, who looks just like Edward Norton, it's like, that's Pete Seeger. It's like, I got it. He's, don't worry about it. I'm not going to say, hey, Ed Norton did this. No, it's Pete Seeger. Monica Barbaro is so good as Joan Baez, somebody I never really cared that much for before. And she is kind of is kind of sent through the ringer a little bit, because there is commentary about how she was recording Bob's songs before he had a chance, and was that fair that she wasn't really paying him for it, and stuff like that. She was paying him in other ways, though. And then Timothée Chalamet he's not doing an impersonation of Bob Dylan. He is Bob Dylan. And there is one scene when he and Elle Fanning are going to try again at a relationship, and she realizes it's just not going to be it, and she takes off for the ferry, kind of leaving him behind. That's
She left him for a gay guy?
maybe, I don't know, but no, it's a really good screen. It's a really good scene, and the character, the real life person that she's playing, is a fascinating person because of how little she wanted to talk about her relationship with Bob Dylan. And she's on one of the most famous album covers of all time. And she just was successful in pushing that away from her, to the point that Bob Dylan himself did not want her named her real name. It's a pseudonym for this movie. So it's a really good movie. The actors doing their own songs, just fantastic. It's just a great movie.
I will say real quick that I did not get to watch this, and
I haven't seen it either.
It's my personal perceived biggest miss of the year. Again, I'm not gonna do the Jeff thing and be like, no one's gonna talk me out of this, but I fucking love Bob Dylan and I need to see this movie, and I'm not. So
yeah, I'm way more distraught that I haven't seen this than not having seen Wicked. Let's just say that.
Oh, God, Wicked is so good. It's in my top 100. I haven't seen that either. Sorry. It could be wonderful, but I have not seen it.
Hey, it's somewhere in the top 100.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't say it was at 99 or 93, you know. But no, I urge you guys, when it hits Hulu next month, get there.
100%. I've been checking weekly. Like, is this?
Yeah, it's. I think it's November 14th or March 14th. I think.
Sweet.
Something like that. It's just a couple of weeks away, but unfortunately after the Oscars. Right. But no, I've just had a great time. I listened to the soundtrack. Again, it's hard to distinguish the real from the actor. They sound so good. So yeah, it's great. Now, real quick, I do want to mention my least favorite movie of the year.
Oh no.
A lot of people will tell you that the worst movie ever made, at least for 2024, was Madam Web. Madam Web ain't got shit on The Crow. The Crow. So here's something. I'm going to go ahead and ruin my number one. I'm not going to be the primary person who introduces it anyway. I knew about 30 minutes into Anora, I was watching the best movie of the year. I knew 30 seconds into The Crow, I was watching the worst movie of the year. I have never, ever in my life seen a movie that the first credits on screen, after you see the logos on, like the production company logos, because there's like 40 of them for every movie now. But the first 21 credits listed on screen were executive producers. That was before the director's name. That was before an actor's name. That was before the title. Oh, wow. Somebody wanted their fucking paycheck before, so that they can just dump this movie and get as far away from it as possible. The Eric and Shelley characters have absolutely zero chemistry. They are not even likable people. They're just people who just want to sit around, pop pills, and shoot up all day. And it's like, there's something more to these characters than this. They're not, it's a movie made for people who actually think the relationship between Harley Quinn and the Joker is sweet. And it's disgusting. But what I find so goddamn endearing about this movie is that it's such a mess. And it was such an instant fuck up of a movie that I really, really, really hope that there is some sort of deep dive or documentary made about what happened, because this movie took 16 years to get to the screen. There's only 2 writers. So it's not like it went through a bunch of rewrites and a bunch of it wasn't like one of those 6 people want a writing credit. I don't know what happened to this movie, but it is hacked to shit in editing. there are things that feel like was just never filmed, or just stuff that doesn't add up. Like, we instantly see these two characters meet and they fall in love with each other instantly. I'm like, why? Neither one of you are interesting. And it is such a disaster. Jason, you would last 15 minutes before you would shut it off. But it's almost
it's up for debate if Bill Skarsgård is actually a good actor or not. I'm going to go there.
I didn't mind him being cast as the Crow. I think there's something there.
Crow Malone, was that what people call him?
Crow Malone, yeah. I mean, let's put it this way. Bill Skarsgård, Chuck's going to die. Eric Draven and Bill Skarsgård as Eric Draven is the least of this movie's problems.
Oh, okay. All right.
But Jason, you wouldn't be able to make it through it. Chuck, I don't think you should even bother.
I won't. I knew to draw the line at this movie.
Yeah,
I can tell.
And I knew going in it wasn't going to be very good, but I didn't have any idea that it would be the mess that it was, and it's almost impressively such. So, worst movie of the year. Anybody who thinks that Madam Web is worse than this, and they saw both movies, which not many people did, but maybe Megalopolis is the other one.
Well, I was gonna say that's the movie that would be popular to pick.
Yeah,
I think, but I think what it has in common with what you said about The Crow is I want desperately for a behind the scenes documentary.
Yes. And I don't want one made by the same assholes who made the movie. I want somebody to go in, like, say, I'm with Wired.com, and I want I want the verbal history of, this movie and what happened, because it is, it's special. It is special in that way.
Okay. I will say this for only those two movies. One, I will see Megalopolis someday because I feel like I have to. Two, Jeff, you gave the best pitch I've heard as to why I should watch The Crow that I've heard. Like, honestly, nothing about it interests me. But if it's really that bad, I might enjoy watching it.
I mean, that's the thing. It wasn't, and it's not really one of those fun bad movies, right? Like, the three of us wouldn't get together and have a fun time watching it. But if you get into, like, because, like, when I saw those 21 executive producer credits, I was like, oh, tell me more. And I was like leaning in. I'm like, this is going to be a shit fest. And I wasn't wrong, but it's not fun. If that makes any sense. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I've had my piece.
I want us to do an episode on Megalopolis one day.
That's why I thought, Chuck, we're probably destined for that one. Okay.
I will wait to watch it again until we can do an episode on it, because I think there is so much there to talk about. But wow, is it a mess? And honestly, I think it's also not a good message.
Okay. Well,
I think it's incredibly flawed.
I can tell you one thing. Here in just a couple of months, we are going to watch The Crow, but the good one.
Yeah. It's been a minute since I've seen that. I'm excited.
Yeah. So anyway, Chuck.
Yes.
What was your number 4 movie on the year?
Yeah, I'll satiate Jason's request for more horror from earlier.
More horror.
And we'll talk about Red Rooms.
Wait, real quick. I mean, The Crow could kind of be a horror movie.
Yeah, but then, come on.
The experience, I should say.
Yes. Okay, so and I have to preface this by saying for like the first 10 years of my marriage, my wife fell asleep to true crime shows on TV, and I'd go to bed and be like, oh, fuck. And I'd like turn it off as quickly as possible because this shit gives me nightmares. Yeah. Like, I don't like it. I don't like hearing about people dying. I don't get infatuated with the killers, but it happens. Mm-hmm. And this movie is about one of those people. And it's pretty straightforward, like narrative wise. And there's a little bit of uncertainty about motive of the main character, who is an online poker player. She plays for fucking Bitcoins. Like, she is betting a lot of money in these hands, And it's all to, well, initially, there's a killer who's killing people and playing their deaths in red rooms, which are like deep web kind of web chat rooms where he's posting videos and people are purchasing the ability to watch them. I don't even know what to say about this movie. Like, it is, you were speaking about claustrophobia earlier. This is claustrophobic to me. Like, I felt trapped and uncertain.
Because you're always in small rooms, right?
Yeah.
She sleeps in like an alleyway, and like an alcove in an alleyway. To get there early enough to get in line. The courtroom is small and cramped, but also with like the harsh lighting, right? So you feel exposed, but also like you can't escape. The killer is in a glass box. Apparently, that's how they do it in Canada.
Montreal, right?
Yeah, Montreal. It's in Montreal. Yeah. Her apartment is claustrophobic, even though there's this big window, this beautiful view of the
scenic
city.
View. Yeah,
you still feel like you're trapped in her apartment.
And all the edges are always like kind of bleeding, either in darkness or like, I don't know how to explain it, but it feels like it's pressing in on whatever they're filming focally.
And it's all very minimalist too. So, it always kind of has that kind of perceived feel of a prison cell, right? So yeah, I mean, this movie, this is the one that I've thought about more than any of the movies I saw this year. Like, really thought about.
Probably me too.
I mean,
besides maybe the doc, the rock. Yeah, doc.
Fair enough. Yeah, I could not get this movie out of my head because I think it's saying a lot about society and about the human condition. I think it's saying a lot about how we're losing empathy for the victims of these true crimes. Like, we're in it for the sensationalism, not for the true horror and justice, right?
Well, those of us that care, like, shy away from paying attention to stuff like this because it's too much.
Right. Like
for us.
You're supposed to process a trial and get past it and get justice and move on, not dwell on it, for decades and decades and decades, or not like try to get every single bit of information in order to appease your interest. Like, it's okay. Like, I understand that some of the human curiosity to do that. But I think this movie is like, have we gone too far? It's asking those questions of, how implicit is the media in this? How complicit is our governments in this? Like, what are we doing as a society to keep amplifying certain criminals and certain details, I guess, about horrific things?
I agree with that.
To the point where why do people seek it out? Yeah,
I agree with that, and I think it is left without giving away the movie. There is a certain part of that infatuation that leads to solving the case.
Sure.
Which is interesting too, because these people who are engrossed for reasons other than implicating the killer or solving it probably get close enough to do so. Right.
But I also think that, like, what you see too is to actually solve a case like this, you have to really dedicate everything you have to it, right? You have to sacrifice your own sanity.
Which happens and may have happened. Like, if you guys watch the Patton Oswalt, is it Meredith Salinger, or is she his new wife? No, she was the one that wrote the book, right? Salinger.
Maybe, I don't know.
I can't remember whoever his wife was.
His wife wrote a book, and they based the miniseries.
But it solved the Golden State killer with Paul Holes, who is another person who anyone who watched this movie and idolizes that kind of stuff knows who that man is. But it's interesting. Interesting.
It is interesting, but I think it's critical of even that, because
I think so too.
because at what point are we just amplifying all of this rather than, especially all the cases that have already been solved? Like, why do we need to keep amplifying it? Why do we keep going back to that?
Yeah.
Are you ready for a little bit of my media analysis of Red Rooms?
Dude, Jeff, this is a movie. Oh yeah,
I know.
You saw it. You saw it. I forgot that you saw it. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I saw it. So a couple of things that I find really interesting about the movie. One thing I find really interesting about the movie that I do think speaks to a certain subset of people. And then there's the topic of the true crime phenomenon, right? On one hand, there's the little sidekick character. I can't remember her name. The littler of the two.
Know who you're talking about.
Yeah. She is so, like, she's perverted the rights of the criminal in this case. You know, it's like she calls into that show saying you're not being fair to him. He's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, and he is going to be found innocent. It's a perversion of that consideration of what rights and humanity and sympathy we give to the accused, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer that, it needs to be innocent until proven guilty. However, sometimes the evidence is already there, right? Like, it's like, I mean, we could go much deeper with, like, okay, if it's a white guy on trial, they've done their research. They're not just trying to throw a guy in jail here. Most of the time, those guys are going to be the ones. I mean, it's going to be found guilty.
Unless you're Andy Dufresne.
Unless you're Andy Dufresne or Dr. Kimball.
Yeah.
So, but the other thing,
sure, a one-armed man did it. Sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't care. Anyway, the other thing, the true crime phenomenon, right? This movie isn't really trying to like get to this point, but I do think it is something to consider. A lot of the reason why true crime has become such an industry as it is, there has been some thought put to it that it is a suburban white female driven industry meant to scare white suburban female people into being always looking with a side eye at something that doesn't seem quite right. And it is,
I don't know. I think us husbands are scared of our wives that love this shit.
Right. But like,
yeah, it's always the husband that did it.
Yeah. But there's so many things that have spun off. Right. There's so many things that have spun off of this too. Like, the idea of like, because people have been kind of had their brains addled by true crime and the sensationalism of a murder, of, something that can happen to anybody at any time, that it spins off into things like, some of the most popular TikToks are people talking about how they basically have 47 locks on their door, how they have a gun in every room, how, and it's always blonde white women. And it's like, it just kind of ramps up that concept of real easy to other people. There's a lot there in this movie that shows how the sensationalism does kind of create a little bit of a sickness in some people. Mm-hmm. Not everybody who watches it, Chuck. I'm not implicating Steph in anything.
She's more stable than I am
individual,
about it.
right? It's
the industry
societally. Yes, yeah.
It's the overarching umbrella of it. Because I admit, I watch a Mr. Ballin on YouTube. He tells stories about crimes. Now, he typically anchors it more on the victim, talking about the victim far more than talking about the crime or about the murder or whatever. But there is something interesting, but I don't go out now and, it's like, I don't have a DVR set for Dateline NBC or anything like that. You know, it's like I'm fine with getting the story and then just saying, oh, that was kind of interesting, and then moving on.
The last thing I'll say about this, and it's not even so much, it is the sensationalism, but not the obsession, is that the particular amount of stories we hear like this has led to a little bit of unhealthy parenting. Sure. With some people too, because we're very scared for our children. I have to tell myself all the time, like literally tell myself this is not going to happen just because it happens.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I'm probably on the good side of letting this affect me with how I deal with my children. There are people who are way more helicoptery and worried about that kind of stuff.
I mean, Chuck, you and I could get in the car tomorrow, and that's the last time we ever come home.
We almost drove off the road a million times on the way to Mount Comfort.
Right. But
listening to Flash Gordon. We're hugging on the way out.
Yeah, on the way out, screaming. But like, you know, just because something can happen doesn't mean it will.
Right.
You know, the odds are still infinitesimally small.
But the more you hear that it does happen, the more
it poisons you. Yeah. All right.
That's enough of that. But that's a good movie. This is the last thing I'll say. I really liked it.
I have a feeling we'll talk about it someday again on this show.
Probably.
Jason, you got what? Who does number 2 work for?
Oh, let's see here.
Hard toots.
Constipated farts.
That's who number 2 works for. Sorry.
Wow. My number 2 is Hard Truths. Mike Lee.
I will say this is one I really wanted to see. Didn't get a chance to. I got the trailer. I was like, man, that looks good.
Yeah, it is really good. Mike Lee is kind of exceptional at familial character studies, and this is another one of those. He's reteamed here with Marianne Jean-Baptiste from Secrets and Lies. She plays a matriarch who is not a pleasant person. She's an unhappy person. She's mean to people around her. She berates her family. She's angry. She just berates strangers. Like, she can't have a positive interaction. She's incapable. And throughout the course of the movie, you see the cracks. You see the understanding. You see you understand the reasons why. You know, she's a depressed person she's struggling from grief. She's struggling from, maybe not fulfilling what she thought that she might fulfill in her life personally. She's, it's not necessarily an excuse for her bad behavior, but that's not really the point of the movie. And the point of the movie isn't to forgive her, it's to understand her. And also to see that the only time she's capable of being better are when people are kind to her. And I'm going to probably, yes, I already am crying. Because this movie was incredibly personal to me watching it. It reminded me of my mother, reminded me of my mother growing up. It reminded me of that pain that I carry with me from growing up, and my own depression. And when I know that I'm not happy the way I act, but then also realizing that there's probably a better way that I can be to people who are angry, to my mother, and that I need to find kindness in my heart, as hard as it is, for how many times I've been wounded and injured. Because I don't think that being anything other than kind is going to ultimately be good for me or make me happier. So I just sat there at the end of this movie and cried throughout the whole credits. Just sat there and cried. I'm crying right now. Deeply, deeply personally affecting this movie for me. I don't think that a lot of people will have the same reaction I did. I think they'll still find a lot of value in it. They'll find it as probably beautiful as well. But man, when a movie just like hits you over the head and makes you realize things about yourself that are deep, like deep stuff. It's a testament to what a movie can do and why we need them, why they're important, why little ones like this that cost very little money, that didn't get much distribution, that need to be amplified. Stories like this, not going to be the easiest watch for most, but they have a real chance to change lives.
Yeah.
TV Glow, I would say, is another one like that. Has a real chance to save lives, right? That's my spiel.
I'll quickly note then, since that's your spiel, I don't have anything to say about this movie, but two quick things. I want to let you know I love you. You're the best. So whatever growth you feel you need to do, I am right here with you to help you however I can. And two, I regret saying hard toots.
Well, that was perfect bookend, actually.
I mean, here I was going to say, like, ditto, and the cinematography is done by Dick Pope.
Dick Pope. Yeah.
We need
But I also, but
that guy's name.
You're right. I will also say that I'm with Chuck. That I am sorry he said hard toots.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you, guys.
No, this was one that I definitely wanted to see. I saw the trailer and I thought, oh yeah, Mike Lee. I know that guy.
It's also a funny movie. Like she can be really funny when she's really mean. Kind of like As Good as It Gets, where his what he says is kind of has like the ring of truth to it. It's kind of where the hard truths come from, because a lot of times she just says what she thinks, right?
Yeah.
And some of those things cut deeper than they should because of how true they are. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that was the thing. It's like seeing the trailer. Half the trailer is funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
there's comedic elements to it for sure. Yeah.
Interestingly, this is a movie shut out at the Oscars. The channel that I've been watching a lot of, awards contender, asked the simple question I never thought of before, which is it the Bleecker Street of it all? Because I don't think Bleecker Street has ever gotten it distributes a lot of movies, but I don't think it's ever been nominated for anything.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it got turned away by Cannes. They didn't accept it.
That's odd.
Really?
Yeah. It's wild to me. I mean, Mike Lee is better than that, but
nothing to do with the movie, but I am quite over of it all when people put that at the end of things.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that was a you thing, Jeff, or something else.
No. I was quoting. Yeah, I was quoting somebody on that. Yeah.
I'm over that shit. Is it the Jeff of it all? Like,
is it it's the Chuck of it all that you're over?
The Chuck of it all. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Cannes, I think we got some Cannes movies coming up here.
we do.
Yeah.
Because my number 2 is the most beautiful movie of the year, Flow. Mm-hmm. This is a movie that there's so much you can think about while you watch it. There's so much you can be almost breathlessly terrified while watching it, because you don't want to see the cat get hurt. You don't want to see the cat drown. You don't want to see this capybara get left behind. It's like it is an unbelievably sweet and nice and beautiful movie that keeps you on the edge from start to finish, while also being a little funny. Mm-hmm. It's certainly thought-provoking. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things to think about. It's a movie that it's from Latvia. I can't say Latveria. Every time I see Latvia, I was like, oh, that's where Dr. Doom's from. No, that's,
One world under Doom, but
one world under Flow, which kind of is the case of this movie.
Yes,
but
it
yeah,
is.
there is no dialogue, but the animals communicate with you, with each other, with the nature around them. And it's a movie where you feel terrible for these things being left behind, particularly the cats and dogs, because they had to have had human companions at some point. Mm-hmm. The cat lives in a house that worshipped cats, like they're like actual cat statues out front. Did the person leave the cat? Has this person been gone for a long, and this is just a cat that found the place? You can ponder that. You can ponder what causes the flooding that comes and goes. You ponder where the people went. And through the whole time, though, it is just simply animals showing that they don't really need us as much as we like to think that they desperately need us. They don't. They will figure things out on their own. And they actually, like, in a way, and we're going to talk about these movies soon enough, but in a way, there's a little bit of Planet of the Apes where you start seeing them figure things out in a way where it's like, yeah, naturally, they probably would figure these things out eventually. But it's a wonderful movie. It's so interestingly animated. I hope it wins Best Animated Feature. Not that I dislike Wild Robot, but I don't understand the universal absolute praise for it. Because to me, it's just an average animated feature. This is like Miyazaki level of there's more to it.
Yeah, I think it's political.
I'm sure it is.
The guy who made Wild Robot, I don't remember his name, but I think there's a sentiment in Hollywood that he deserves one, and this is the year to give it to him. Yeah.
And this is the better movie.
I agree, but that is not always how these awards work. Yeah.
I know. But this is a great movie. It's I always love being that, I'm a member of the Criterion channel, and I buy a lot of Criterion stuff. It's always nice to see that this was distributed by
Janus.
Knowing the history of Janus too is also fun. But anyway, it's Jason, talk about it. You saw the movie.
Yeah. I love it. I was so nervous a lot of the time. It's much easier to watch the second time around and just kind of enjoy it on its own because it is kind of an anxiety-ridden ride. Did you watch it yet, Chuck?
No, I was going to add it one point, and I'll just add it quickly now because it's short, that I sat down twice to watch it and felt like I wasn't in the headspace for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of that, like I was like, I know
there was like constant peril. Yeah.
Yes,
and
I wasn't in the headspace.
And there's like the anxious cat sounds and everything. It's just like, just like it starts to like really kind of like make me scared. I probably welled up in tears like 7 or 8 times watching this movie because of and thinking of the worst, right? But yeah, it's almost like another one of those life affirming type movies where you can see you're and understand more about your own humanity by watching these animals and work together without any of the contrived like homeward bound dialogue and all of that, where you have human voices or moving mouths and all that crap. Like this is all the effective storytelling of a movie like that, but done so simply. And it reminds me of I mentioned this to you guys. It reminds me of those kind of those video games too. Like you can make a flow video game so easily.
They have.
And have they done it? Or was it
based
on
a board game? It's a board game.
I was thinking like a video game though. Where it's kind of like the Journey or Flower, Asboo, those games where they're like kind of non-narrative, but you go through.
Or two of them.
Yeah, they're great. Journey is one I go back to every year or so.
Journey's awesome.
When I'm feeling like I need to like get in a better headspace because it's like it's all abstract, but there's a piece to it, but there's also a danger, but there's just the humanity about it.
But you're also teaching your brain to solve puzzles. right? Like to solve the things that are in front of you without the subtext of
Yeah.
Well, and the animals do that in this movie
Exactly.
too.
I think that's
exactly
what
right.
that's what
That's exactly right. Like it would be work so well as that type of video game. But yes, I think it is the nicest movie of the year. I think I might have said that about Sing Sing, and I agree that Sing Sing is also very nice.
You said it was the most human movie of the year. This one is not human.
This is the nicest movie of the year, but it also is human in a lot of surprising ways.
Well, because
it also has one of my two favorite death scenes in a movie.
I think I know what you're talking about because I'm about to talk about this too. But it goes from it goes from just animals doing animal things to figuring out like where are you going to live if something bad happens. That's something people have to think about, and we don't realize that animals are far better equipped to make that decision than we are.
Yeah.
There's an element of there's a resources element with the cranes, and and how they don't want the cat to be around, and one says one stands up to the others. And speaking of the crane, there's that religious element where the crane, we don't know what happens to the crane. It's there, and it makes a journey someplace, and it's like raptured. And
beautiful,
and it's a beautiful sequence.
Beautiful. Yep.
And so like there's and then there's the relief of it all, and then there is a sadness to that relief in a way where it's like we survived it, but something didn't.
Yeah.
Although maybe it did. That's it's like.
Did you see the little end credit scene?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it did, but yeah, it's a wonderful movie, and it's a movie that I could see myself just having on and just looking over every now and then.
For sure.
And but yeah, I assume you watched it once with Susan.
Yeah, we watched it together for the first time. Yeah. Well, I really would have liked to have gotten to see it in the theater, but it just didn't work out. But now it's back in theaters. It's at living room right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I assume she liked it quite a bit too.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Chuck, give it a shot when you are in the headspace.
I will. I definitely will.
Well, who wants to go with number ones first?
I mean,
I can do.
You want to go?
Since it's you two share number one. I can do mine.
I really like yours too.
I know, man. It's all right. So my number one is The Substance, and if you've been following these best of since we've been doing them, it probably comes as no surprise to you because I think were my number ones. Raw, Titan, and Crimes of the Future in their respective years.
They're very close to the top. Yeah. I know that. So anything Cronenberg-esque is like near the top of the list.
It's going to be hard to supplant it. And this one, when I watched it opening day here, at least in Indianapolis. But during the afternoon, this is my one regret. So in the afternoon with like maybe just a smattering of other middle-aged white dudes. And I really wish I saw it in a packed theater opening night because that is the true way to see this movie. I knew when I watched this movie it was an instant cult classic. I also knew when I saw this movie that it was going to be one of the most like talked about word of mouth movies of the year, and it certainly was. It'll be the kind of the movie that people will want to show to other people to say, "Oh, look at this crazy shit," right? Mm-hmm. It was so much fun to watch. Even the smattering of people in my theater squirm at times, right? And there was even stuff in it where I was like, "Oh my god, that's nasty." It's like I was surprised by how shocked I was at some of the ooey gooey stuff, right?
Right.
So just as like a crazy batshit gross factor, it's already just fun as hell, right? And then there's this this very, very surface level sort of, body positivity message, right? Like the female body positivity, where the pressure to be a certain way and look a certain way and to be pretty and not to age. So many men are just given the grace to just age, and they still somehow are seen as handsome, right? But women aren't afforded the same luxury in society, especially when it comes to like being on TV, right, and being in movies and being or your whole sort of career is being seen, right?
Right.
But then there's also like other metatextual stuff going on in there. Like I don't think it's just all one surface level metaphor. There's a lot of different subtext happening throughout this movie. There's a lot of like do you ever do this where I call it it's kind of like the concept of being your own worst enemy, but you sort of sacrifice your future self is what I call it. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally gonna like get up at 8:30 tomorrow and realize that 8:30 tomorrow is not something that I want to do, right? but you think, oh, I can be my better person. And you're always kind of like hoping you can be that better person, but then when time comes to do the thing that you really didn't want to do, you struggle, right? So it's that inner conflict that you have.
I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite. Since you asked the question, if I could answer it, because I think it plays a part in this movie, I'm the one that's like, I'll give myself the extra hour or 2 hours to do the thing I want to do tonight, and I'll still be okay at 8:30. And that's the time where you need to get back and do the thing in this movie, right? Like you have to do it at a certain time.
Yeah. See, I am Margaret Qualley. I am Margaret Qualley.
That's like, what I'm saying. Like I sacrifice. I'll stay up later.
Yep.
And say 8:30 is going to be fine, but it's not.
But it's
because I wake up with that. I wake up with that. Whatever, it's played to the nth degree in this movie.
You're like, oh, it'll be okay. It'll be just fine.
Yes.
And then you realize it's not going to be
It's funny how they tell that in this. Like, you need to get back and get the juice and do the thing. I can't even explain it, but you know what I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, beyond that, there's that. There's also, I love the way this movie completely subverts the male gaze, right? Like it leans into all of that, it is shot to objectify, but then that slow metamorphosis that starts to happen, right? It's almost like it's like you look at Demi Moore, and sure, she's had plastic surgery and work and everything done, but she's a beautiful older woman, and she's
perfectly
not
fine,
and she's not good enough, right? So it's like, what do you really see? Like, how monstrous do you think it is, right? And then by having her turn into the Monstro Elisa Sue by the end.
Oh my god!
And it has all the parts. They're all there, right? And he even uses that one guy's line against him. It's like, I wish if only her boobs were on her forehead, right?
Right.
It's like, oh, is that what you want? That's what that looks like. I just love how it kind of like throws it all in your face by the end. God, Demi Moore's performance is just completely outrageous. The sheer audacity of this movie, and the fact that it was able to pick up as much steam as it has, to the point where it got nominated for Best Picture, I think it's just incredible. Like, it never had a chance in hell of winning, but man, the fact that it's got a seat at the table is insane. It gives me hope for Hollywood in some ways, that they will reward really risky movies like this.
Well, it's a new voting body. It's a brand new world now, and that's why sometimes the what's been winning lately, it has broken some old taboos.
One thing,
a piece of subtext too, real quick, is like the idea of your like older self hating your younger self.
Damn it, that's what I was about to say.
Hating the choices that you made.
It's the reverse of what.
Yeah.
Well, usually it subverts it in this movie because it's your younger self hating your older self, right?
Yeah.
Not us being like, I'm in pain. Why did you do those dumb things?
but it's both because
It's both,
because
yeah.
she is quite literally being like eaten away at by the choices of her, quote unquote younger
Yes,
self.
but they're happening now.
Yes.
Versus the opposite,
Well,
which
and
is
it's
her younger self hating her for yes.
Yeah.
Well, and
What
the
happened
younger,
earlier.
and the younger self, like I said this to my dad the other day when we went out to lunch for my birthday. Never in my life until 5-6 years ago did I have an idea of what being 48 would be like. Mm-hmm. When I was 25, I could maybe see 30. But I could never thought what would I be like at 48. Mm-hmm. And now I know, but like, and I don't think my younger self would be that pleased that, yeah, dude, you didn't really do a whole lot.
What I'll say about that, and I agree with you, is that the thing that surprises me most, and I think it is kind of prevalent in this movie, if not said, is that my brain, what I haven't killed of it, what I wouldn't yell at my younger self or my today self for destroying, is so much more youthful.
Sure.
Than I ever thought it would be. Like, I can't imagine my dad, who had 18, 20-year-old kids when he was in his early 30s, trying to instruct them through life. It's like, no, man, I didn't even know what the fuck was going on when I was 32. I'm still kind of figuring it out, and I do my best at it. The body breakdown, sure, I get it, and it's actually happening quicker than I thought it would. It's kind of the reverse.
Yeah,
and this movie kind of plays it in reverse.
Yep.
Too. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's pretty wonderful film.
It is. I think that the critics out there who think it's one note aren't seeing it all.
There's plenty who are championing this.
It's playing a lot of notes. It is. Yeah.
There are plenty of critics though who are championing this movie.
There are.
Now I will say that I am a fan of Coralie Farge because I named Revenge in our first episode in which we did a top 10. It finished like in the top 5 for me that year.
I don't think I've seen it yet, but I agree wholeheartedly. That's a great movie.
Yeah.
Why didn't this end up in your top 10, Jeff? What about it?
So I'm going to pull a Hundreds of Chucks. It was too long for me.
Okay.
It was just it when it really went to batshit land. I was like, I was kind of ready for it to be over.
The payoff is so good.
I mean, it's not that I necessarily dislike everything that was. It just didn't make it.
I on a second watch, I gave it the half-star ding for length. Back to it.
Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe someday I will.
The sound design on this one too. I don't think it has any chance in hell of beating Dune. I don't even know if it's nominated, the sound design, but fuck, sound design in this is great.
Everything about this movie is really
all
really
of the like
good.
Kubrick stuff too is like what's going on there. I just feel like there's a lot to go back and think about.
Some of my favorite stuff is
it's like there's so much of the production design.
Oh, the hallway,
the bathroom.
Just how ugly they make men just in angles. Too is really good. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't ever want to be that close to Dennis Quaid ever again.
God. I mean,
especially when he's eating shrimp and deshelling the shrimp. But I will say that the one of the little things about it that I really really love is the is that constant reminder outside her window of the billboard.
Yeah.
Just the constant twisting of the knife every day.
Yeah.
I do believe that it is there is such a great scene when she has that breakdown when she can't bring herself to go out on the date that she wanted to go out on.
Oh yes, yes.
And she's like wiping the makeup off her face, and she's broken. You know, and it's such a good scene.
I think that's the scene though that wins her the Academy Award. I think that's the one.
Man, it's a 1 and 1A situation.
Oh, when she's like deciding to
For
cook
me.
through the Martha Stewart cookbook too. That kills me
Oh
too.
God, yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
But yes, I know. I have a hard time. I think it's the toughest choice of the Academy this year.
Yeah.
Is Best Actress.
And one other thing, we talked about like when she starts to like kind of like melt away into nothing, like as she gets older and older, faster and faster. I think that can also be read in a way where it's like some women may feel like that when there's a lot of attention paid to them. There's some who have a self-esteem issue that will begin to feel more like that, like almost Disney-like old lady that's going to give Snow White the apple.
Yeah, the crone, right? Yeah.
Right, the crone. Yeah. It's the crone, and it's like, but there's some who are younger who feel like that because they don't like the attention put on them. Mm-hmm. They just want to find themselves attractive, and yeah, good performances. I wish Margaret Qualley got the Oscar nomination also.
Yeah.
Because her opposite to Demi Moore is what makes, she is the same character. It's two sides of the same character.
You are one.
Yes. But yeah, it's a good movie. It's a good movie. Not quite top 10 for me. Maybe someday I rewatch it, which I'm sure we'll watch it for this show someday. And I may say, you know what? It should have been, get out of here, beavers.
I'm very surprised you don't have it in your top 10. It's fantastic.
But Chuck.
Yeah.
You and I are simpatico, which means your list is the best list.
I do have the best list, even though I don't have hundreds of beavers.
But we do share 6 movies, though. So, I think we're simpatico.
Yeah, this last movie, which happens to be number 1 on my list and number 1 on your list, Jeff, is I would call it an exploitation flick in a lot of ways, and why. Whoa, I'm getting like some eye moves from Jeff. Like,
no, I'm thinking about that. No, I'm thinking about that because I think it is a 70s movie that got released 50 years later.
Yes, totally agree. It harkens back to some of the stuff I love in the 70s, but it puts a slant on it, like a comedic slant instead of the...
It still has the funniest single scene, or sequence, I should say, because it's more than just one scene.
Okay, well, I'll just say what it is. It's a Nora.
Yes. I already kind of ruined that when I said...
You did.
You did. That was 30 minutes ago, so...
But it... Like, I don't know, man. I don't know what I even love about this movie. It's a weird movie because it's like the second best at everything, but it does everything.
Well, it's the average that wins out, right?
Yes. It's like it's funny as shit. It's emotional. It does class and power dynamics well, but we've seen that a little better in other movies. We've seen like identity and agency done better in other movies, but it does it really fucking well here. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, the whole of it is just really
good. I first of all, I want to say I saw it in a relatively packed theater. Like it was, like I went on a Friday night. I think it was like November 1st or something like that. It was like a Friday night. It was kind of cold outside or rainy or something, but so like people went to the movie and they had apparently heard of this movie. It was the winner of the Palme d'Or.
Yep.
Which means it could very possibly become the 3rd Palme d'Or Best Picture.
Oh.
With Parasite and Marty. But it was a movie where you could hear little chuckles throughout like certain scenes where it was like really sexual or you would hear like loud laughter when she's going nuts when they're trying to restrain her, which is, God, it's so funny.
That's one of the, like, just to jump in here, because that's really uncomfortable. And you really don't know if you should be laughing, but you're laughing and you just have to kind of give into it.
Well,
You're like,
when
this
she
woman
starts
is getting
throwing
the
things and hitting people, it's
it's
funny.
it's obviously funny, but it's also she is being subdued, and I should not be laughing at what's happening.
Right. But she's so over the top herself that it's like, okay, this is a comedy now, but like it's kind of funny because it's like,
I love how each one chastises the other for being too physical with her until they learn how dangerous it is to not restrain her.
Yes. Right. and one of the guys, he just
assault.
One of the guys later on, when they're just driving around looking for the kid, he just throws up. He just barfs on himself. It's hilarious.
He's got a concussion. Yeah.
But this was a wild ride for me in some ways, because in the first few minutes of the movie, I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm going to like these characters.
Oh my God, there's so much to like about these characters too.
But they grow on you, man. I mean, like, even the loser kid, like, he's just an asshole. He's just an idiot, and it's like, he has too much money to know what to do with, so he buys a wife, essentially.
Well, he's the son of an oligarch, right? It's
right.
important to note.
Yeah.
And it's important
because the whole time you think they're going to be a criminal.
This is a microcosm to a lot of things that are
going on. Yeah.
That are going on. And you're right. You do think his dad's a drug dealer or
a mobster or something. Yeah.
Yes.
And then you have the hired thugs, and you have a clergyman who gets involved with we're going to set everything right, which, Chuck, you're right. It is a microcosm of how society kind of works, at least in this country, or at least where we're headed. But no, I mean, like, as the movie continued on, you really, really like Honora. Mm-hmm. Because
I like one character more than her, but
I know which one you're talking. Yeah, he's
great.
Do
you have the same haircut?
Yes.
He's great because he's so empathetic and sympathetic to her.
Toros
right?
is the funniest character. Oh my God.
Oh God, yeah. But
I'm sorry.
Toros. He's the funniest character.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, he's funny. I wish he was nominated, honestly.
Yeah. But no, you just understand that she is, it's like, in a way you can sympathize with her yourself, because it's like, none of us have that chance to get the brass
Cinderella,
ring. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's Cinderella, but every time the clock moves, it's midnight. Right. It's like, it's never going to work. And it's like, we all think, wouldn't it be great to win the lottery? But then, you don't know what other problems come up there. Wouldn't it be great to marry into money? Yeah, that's great. But would you really be into it?
And even the power plays she tries to make are like, no.
Yeah, it's like,
you're not that powerful, kid.
Right. She doesn't have the standing, and she's smart, but she makes some mistakes that anybody would make, and you just love her. It's like, she's just a character that you root for. And in the end, I like to think that our two best characters have something, but also realist in me says, no, they don't.
Man, Susan and I talked like for an hour at the bar the other night just about that last scene. It's incredible. It's incredible.
It is.
Yeah. It's everything crashing down, and we all feel that way sometimes, man.
Well, if you put into, I can't even put it into words, but how she latched on to the oligarch's kid,
mm-hmm.
and that flashpoint, and what place she was in her life, and then flash it forward to her in that car, mm-hmm. and another flashpoint. It's like, is she doing the same thing again. And that's kind of what I think Honora would do.
Yeah.
Like, but you could read it anyway. I don't know what your hour-long conversation was, Jason. I don't want to ruin the movie, but it's hard to talk about this movie without, because it is those moments that make it great. Really, it's not.
She doesn't. She has not realized anything. I don't think, but she's starting to.
She's almost like a sitcom character in a way.
Because
Get reset.
She there's something transactional about the way she behaves in that scene. It's not what he wants. And then she doesn't know how to react to what he wants because that's not what she knows. She doesn't know how to love herself. She doesn't know how to accept real love, right? There's so much going on there. And yes, it is all hitting her right then like a ton of bricks.
Yeah, all at once.
Yep.
But we're three assholes with mics. What did like, do you remember Susan's takeaway on that? Because a woman's perspective, I think, would be important here in that moment, right?
She agreed that it was she's said she's just dealing with everything that's just happened over the last week, right? Last day. And the more we talked about it, like I almost called it. I called it like not the love story you thought you were going to get. And then she got mad at me for calling it a love story at all.
Right.
And I was like, but I think that it's coming from a place contextually of a love story, and it's inverting the love story, and it's showing maybe a more real like love, whether or not it becomes a happy ending or not, it doesn't matter. Like, I think that he is falling in love with her.
Well, I think also she is learning, like,
and she's learning how to understand what maybe people see in her that is worth loving, right?
Yeah, because she is. I mean, because like at one point she has to stand her ground a lot, being a stripper, right? She has to be. Yeah, she has to be strong. She has to be, direct, and she has to, all of that stuff.
She always has to act vulnerable without ever being vulnerable, really.
But also know when to be assertive, when she has to be assertive about,
what I'm saying, like, it's her vulnerability that she portrays is all part of her job.
Right.
Yeah.
And
what's really going on behind the scenes inside of her.
Yeah. Now, in some ways, she is learning and taking the stance of having to defend something that she wants. But in the process of that, she begins to realize that maybe what's most important is that she is being strong without actually achieving what she's being strong for, if that makes sense. Like, I think she's learning that it's like, I don't want this kid anyway, but I need to stand up for myself. They can't come in and tell me what I'm going to do.
I'm with you on that. I think a part of my read, and I don't necessarily agree with this as a whole, is that this movie is saying at times love is the affection that you need in a moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not everlasting always. It's not
right.
Like, it's the affection that you need now is love. And she got it from the oligarch. She got it from the guy at the end. She got it in other moments in the movies in like microwaves from microwaves from other characters, right? Like, it is important that you receive affection, even if it's not everlasting love. Because I don't know if there is any love in this movie.
I mean, honestly, the concept of love as a construct is a part of what this movie's about. Like, not to do like the Will Ferrell, Chris Kattan, but what is love?
Maybe don't hurt me.
Maybe don't hurt me.
No more. Great. This really is a great movie, and I do think it does everything. Everything it attempts to do, it does very, very well. Maybe not the best of any movie I saw this year, but for the most part, fucking really good, which makes it
on balance
the best movie I saw this year. Yeah.
And it is perfectly structured 3 acts. as well.
Yes.
Sure.
It is like painfully obvious that there's 3 acts, especially that first act, and when it ends,
Yeah.
season was like, oh, so that was our Cinderella tale. Now it's reality. It's like, yep.
Yep.
When the kid takes off running,
Oh my god.
that fucking kills me. Anyway, yeah, but those early parts, it's like, man, I'm not gonna like these characters, and then I find out it's like, I like all these characters in different ways, and it's like I love some of the characters. So yeah, it's great.
When Torres leaves the baptism, oh my god.
Oh my god, yes. And she does have her final moment where she does get to speak her mind she speaks to power, and that's great. But
And the dad laughs. It's so
oh my god, that's great. Yeah, it's but anyway, I think we should count down all of our, make sure everybody gets our top 10s, and let's call it a day. Maybe
I'll go first. We'll go backwards.
we go backwards.
My number 10, Saturday Night. Number 9, Baby Girl. Number 8, Riddle of Fire. Wait, am I doing this right?
Yeah, you're doing all right.
Oh, sorry. 11 looked weird to me. Number 6, I saw
7.
on TV. 7. Well, my Saturday Night is 11 on the list. There we go.
Because there's an extra row.
Sorry.
Oh my goodness.
Number 5, Yacht Rock documentary. Number 4, Red Rooms. Number 3, The Substance. Number 2, Conclave. And number 1, as we just spoke about, Honora.
You still didn't mention number 7, Long Legs.
Number 7, Long Legs. Sorry, the rows and the numbers confuse me.
Oh, fair enough. All right.
I have a few honorable mentions I want to throw out there real quick. For a different take on the metaphor of body dysmorphia and trans identity, I wholeheartedly recommend The People's Joker. It was the far superior Joker movie that came out in 2024.
Even that wasn't as bad as The Crow. That joke.
My favorite action movie of the year, I usually like to throw that in there, is Rebel Ridge. Jeremy Saulner's new effort. Very cool, very interesting take on an action movie. I highly recommend. One of my favorite comedies of the year, also starring the Lorne Michaels guy, was Snack Shack.
Oh, yeah.
Snack Shack you both need to see. You're going to like that. You also need to see, if you haven't seen it, listeners, Dinner in America, same director. Both those movies, fantastic. Snack Shack was just lovely. Then one other quick honorable mention, Fresh Kills. This was one, shout out to Brandon if he listens to us. This was on his list, and I'd never heard of it, so I checked it out. A really kind of cool mob movie, but told entirely from the matriarchal, like, female perspective within the mob, and like what that's really like, especially growing up as a young girl in the mob and having so much of it shielded from you, and you have to like gradually learn about what your dad really does and who all of your uncles are. Really interesting, and how that like psychologically affects you. Yeah, those are my honorable mentions. So then my number 10 of the year was Sing Sing. Number 9, Red Rooms. Number 8, Conclave. Number 7, Hundreds of Beavers. Number 6, Flow. Number 5, Nickel Boys. Number 4, I Saw the TV Glow. Number 3, Honora. Number 2, Hard Truths. And number 1, The Substance.
Very, very nice. Let me give a couple of extra shout outs. I really like Dee Dee.
Oh, real quick.
Oh, what?
I have one more. I forgot one more honorable mention.
Oh, yeah.
My God.
Mars Express.
Yeah.
French animated sci-fi. Feels like a French, or feels like an old French comic book come to life. Great,
Nice.
great stuff.
Nice. Yeah. So Dee Dee, I thought was a very fun. Again, really felt like an early 2000s.
Yeah.
movie. Sweet
good.
little coming of age story with a lot of off color jokes.
Really nice performance from Joan Chen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. As the
The mom.
embattled mother. Yes.
Yeah.
Also, another sort of odd coming of age story. My Old Ass.
Oh yeah.
I thought was very sweet movie.
It was. God, that movie like makes me sad when I think about it now because of Aubrey Plaza. Just
yes. A movie that hung around in my top 10 for a long time until it finally had to fall out. The Bike Riders.
Oh yeah, I love that.
That was a good one. Really made you kind of feel for the people in the gang and what was happening when it was all falling apart.
What an interesting analysis of like male fragility in a lot of ways, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Mike Nichols, or not Mike Nichols, Jeff Nichols.
Jeff Nichols, yeah. Also, man, it was really good seeing Transformers 1.
I haven't seen
make it fun for Transformers fans again. A lot of fun. I think you'd really like it, Jason.
I should check it out. Yep.
And maybe Chuck. And one last one. I got to give some love to Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh yeah,
I had some great laughs in that. Fun stuff.
That far more than I thought I would.
I'm surprised when you said you did. Yeah. Perfect pairing. Perfect pairing of those two.
I loved all the old
oh god, and the
stuff like Electra and all that. Like that just cracked me up. Blade.
The final little tribute to the Fox.
Oh, that was so
putting the non-DCU or the MCU
merging
stuff,
the universes.
But it's putting it to bed too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we can move forward when the X-Men is rebooted.
Yes.
Yep. Exactly.
It was good.
And now on to my top 10. Number 10, Hundreds of Beavers. Number 9, I Saw the TV Glow. Number 8, Conclave. Number 7, A Real Pain. Number 6, Baby Girl. Number 5, Long Legs. Number 4, Saturday Night. Number 3, A Complete Unknown. Number 2, Flow. And number 1, Honora. So there you have it.
Pretty good.
I think we picked some good movies.
Yeah.
Pretty good year.
I enjoyed it.
Also, when you guys get a chance, I would also recommend to you guys Memoir of a Snail.
Oh, yeah.
That's a nice little movie, too.
Yeah.
So, anyway, guys, I think we did it.
We did it.
I do, too.
Should we talk about what's coming next week?
Say goodbye.
Under 3 hours, too. We did good.
Wait. Let's see how long we can stretch out this landing here.
Depends on how well we close.
Yeah. Go to filmseizure.com. That's where you can find all of the places you can follow us, where you can subscribe, all of that good stuff. And come back on Wednesday, March the 5th, as we talk about a dead ant. Dead ant. And maybe buy some Corning insulation for our homes. We're going to talk about the Pink Panther. This was after having Chuck with your perfect pick for Dr. Strangelove. I thought, oh boy, we need to get Pink Panther going.
I mean, we should do all the Peter Sellers.
We should do all the Peters and the Sellers. So yeah, go to filmseizure.com, listen to that. Again, that's where you can find everything to where you can follow us and so forth. Next Monday, I kind of already talked about this, but the next episode of Monster Mondays is Oddity, one of those great horror movies I saw in 2024 that I just dug the hell out of the whole thing.
Nice.
This upcoming Friday at my website, bmovieanima.com, I have a review of maybe the most dare you to watch it video in video store history. Dare to take a guess? Chuck, looks like you have a guess.
Faces of Death.
You both got it. Yes.
I mean, his faces of death.
Yeah, his faces of death. Sure is. I bought the
Talking
whole
about Red
collection.
Rubes, man.
Yeah. I bought the whole collection at Horror Hound.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I don't know if I'm doing any more because not there. Anyway, yeah, so do that if you would. Good times. Until next week, when we step on our Stradivarius, getting back in the bed.
Once you see one, you've seen them all.
You've seen them all. Until then, I am Jeff Arbuckle.
I'm Chuck Moore.
I'm Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Film Seizure.
Best of 2025.
For
damn it.
Close the books on 2024.
I'm in fiscal years.
Chuck works off fiscal years. Yeah.
For some reason, I knew you were going to say 2025 too.
I did too. Yeah, he's saying it too slow.
I'm fucking terrible at that shit.